Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net. From Asthmacore Studios near Detroit, Michigan, it's Unregimented.
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
And now, here are your hosts.
Welcome to Regimented number 260. I'm Chris.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Rich.
We are back from our Thanksgiving break. And yeah, it's where do we begin? There's a few things on the docket. Why am I saying docket? I don't work in court.
We're like judges. We're judging all these news stories.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. Should we just get the Trump shit out of the way? Because
sure. I haven't argued with you in a while. Let's go.
Well, like I don't know what there is to argue about, really, because I haven't been following this with great detail, but it's just hard to get away from it completely. But there are some kind of interesting stories bubbling up about Michael Cohen's testimony and also about Paul Manafort's testimony. And
I saw Michael Cohen told the truth today, and he didn't even need $1 million. Months ago.
Michael Cohen told the truth about a lot of meetings involving getting a Trump tower in Moscow. And he admitted to lying, which he said he did so in order to keep on message with the president, or person number one, I think, as he's referred to. But everyone knows who it is, which is just the same as saying that he was lying to protect him.
I'm just weary of the whole thing. Can it just be over?
Well, this is the first solid connection between Trump and Russia.
And all I read about his testimony is the meetings went later into the campaign than he had said, and there was something about a meeting in Moscow, or planning a meeting in Moscow, or something like that. Mm-hmm. What I saw today.
The planned meeting between Trump and Putin.
Sure. I said I kind of just skimmed it when I read it earlier. This is really responsible journalism, by the way, everybody.
Whose journalism? Us?
Yeah.
No, we're just commenters.
We're bullshitting about something we skimmed. I'm just to the point, like, it just give us something. I guess my beef has been more with the media than it has been with the whole ordeal. I get it. 24-hour news cycle. You need stuff to talk about, but it's just wearying at this point. Can we just, when significant things happen, can we just report on them? A bunch of mights and maybes.
Well, okay, but does this qualify?
Hold on. I agree with you, but I agree with you because I'm weary of we found something, we've got him, versus have nothing, you don't have him.
Like, how many times have we heard we got him? Like, we're on like a half a dozen.
I mean, if it's coming from MSNBC, CNN, it's significant progress in the investigation. If it's coming from Fox or Breitbart, it's they have nothing, they're still digging, prosecute her for the emails. And it's like, you know what? Just wake me the fuck up when something gets in front of a judge. Because the media, I'm not getting facts. I'm getting your opinion on what's going on. And that's what's weary to me. I'm very weary of that. Like, I just want facts, man. Come on.
I think you're right. I mean, it is conjecture. They're reporting on something, on an investigation that does have leaks, but they seem to be very structured leaks. The things that have leaked seem to be specifically what Mueller wants to be leaked for purposes of furthering the investigation. Other than that, everything else is just really conjecture.
It all reminds me of...
But as we hear these stories here and there about possible, illegal doings of the president, I think the logical conjecture for a lot of people is like, this is it, right? Because under normal circumstances, or what we feel is normal normal for an American president, at least. There's many things that Trump has done already openly that don't even need to be proved that we would think would have totally ruined past presidents. So I think that's where granted, a lot of this is desire to report, having to have something to say about the investigation, having to have an opinion, an angle, a theory on it. This is what's getting the clicks and eyeballs, no doubt. But I kind of understand where a lot of it is coming from. I mean, honestly, I think from my experience, there's less of that going on in the media. There seems to be a kind of a calming down. Things are ramping up now because there's actually something real to report on, like Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen. There are real developments in the investigation. But but we're all tired.
It's all reminiscent to me of when Rachel Maddow got Trump's quote unquote tax returns.
Right.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
I'm with Rich. When somebody's handcuffed and they got a court date, let me know.
Or just, I don't need that. I don't need that. I want more of a. The problem is that I don't have cable television. I don't watch network news.
That's not a problem.
I don't.
That's a problem?
Well, okay. Well, the problem is, since I don't have that, I either I seek out like the AP or Reuters, or I see what gets posted by very biased people one way or another, and what they consider valid news sources, which blows my fucking mind constantly. And I'm just like, so this is what the average person is doing. That's what bothers me more. It's like the average person is just cherry picking. Well, this news story says something against Trump. This is fake news. This one says something that I agree with. This is real news. Or vice versa. And it's just like, it gets nowhere. That's the worrying part. People and their bullshit, okay, is what has got me weary. I don't need a Law and Order, dun-dun moment. You know what I'm saying? Like, hang 'em high McCoy gets him to admit something on the fucking stand. I don't need that. I would just like, everybody just shut the fuck up, because all you're doing is muddying the waters. And this isn't, these are people doing it to each other. This isn't even the media. Half these guys, if I forwarded half these so-called sources of information that are valid that people post, and you look at the websites, you're like, was this made on like I don't know, Angel Fire 15, 20 years ago? Who made this website? This looks like something that was state of the art when we were in Specs Howard, and this is being taken as, this is a real news website. No, it's not. It's a bullshit site put up to spread misinformation, and you assholes buy into it every single fucking time. That's what's wearying. So it's not really the situation; it's the people that has got me weary.
And unfortunately, Rich, it's not going away. I heard somebody interviewed Meredith Vieira a few weeks ago. I don't know how I heard this, but she had a very good point. She's like, it's a very dangerous time right now because there is, for whatever you believe, there is an echo chamber for it.
Absolutely. And when you have the Trump campaign painting media that disagree, that not even, okay, I can understand if they feel they're being attacked by a certain media source. Understand, not condone. I can understand the human instinct to attack back. However, this whole thing of any time any criticism is leveled at this presidency, that it's a conspiracy and you're an enemy of the people, and then half the people, who give a fuck in this country, let's put it that way. Let's stop saying half the country, because over half the country really doesn't give a fuck. Look at how many people don't vote compared to who do vote. So of the people who vote enough or give a fuck enough to vote, half of them believe, oh, yeah, the media is the enemy of the people. And then they look to the president and go, well, who's the friend of the people? The media we like. The media that pumps us up. That, to me, is the most dangerous thing. Because at a certain point, you're just doing what your master tells you to do. I mean, Dance, boy.
Politics in 2018.
Dance, boy, dance. That's what you're being told, and it's like you're hot footing it. Is this good enough, Massa? I can do it better, Massa. I swears. I mean, that's what you're doing.
It's interesting that we used to be a certain personality type that would believe in conspiracy theories, and the phrase, some variation thereof, of we're telling the story that they don't want you to know. We're telling the story that no one else is telling. No one else is talking about this, right? These are phrases used to couch ridiculous conspiracy theories.
Yes.
And justify them, as in, like, well, you would think if we were telling you that there's aliens on it, that everyone would be reporting about it, but here's why they're not. And that same justification is now used for quote unquote news stories, and everyone's buying into it. Yeah. Everybody in some way or form, not everybody, but a good majority of the country has picked a side one way or the other and is buying all the conspiracy theories, is going right along with these stories of, well, here's the one that nobody's talking about the Mueller investigation. Why is that? Maybe because it's not fucking true. Maybe this is why we don't just have one monolithic journalism monopoly in this country, is so that we have more than one source for these things, and sure, there's breaking news, but when the New York Times breaks news, everybody else ends up reporting on it if it's actually true news.
Yes, correct. And what's funny too is this doesn't seem to know any partisan lines. It's the lunatics on the right have their conspiracy theories, and the lunatics on the left have theirs.
Oh yeah, we went off the rails of vetting our own sources to just, wait a minute, they said something I agree with, I automatically believe everything they say.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no levels of gray area either. It's like one misstep could make a person all of a sudden go, I don't believe this news source anymore. 99 times out of 100 they praise Trump, but one time they kind of criticized something he did, said, whatever. Well, then this is invalid now. And that's how you argue with someone who has like borderline personality and you're in a relationship with. That's not how the media should work, but it's obviously what we like, what a lot of people want. And so why the fuck should the media do anything else? As much as it irks me to say that, because I fought against it because that's not how it should be. Well, you know what? That's how it is. So I can cry about how it should be, or I can accept how it is. And it's just how it is. And a lot of people are very comfortable with that. And that's what makes me go, I just blow a big wet one for these stories. I'm like, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Because you people have made it, it's not even about the investigation. It's about, one little subject. Yes, one little subject, and then they'll fight about that, and it's like there's a whole issue that's being ignored while you guys fight out one little subject. Like, ooh, Ivanka's emails were on an unsecured server, just like Hillary's. So why lock her up? And it's like, that's tit for tat, dude. You want to play those games? Really? You want to play those games? Because this is where it gets us to a stalemate. We're just, it's just people staring at each other going, you do something first. You do something. No, you do something.
Well, I thought the Michael Cohen news is interesting because it helps put together some of the puzzle pieces.
Well, who perjured himself?
How this story is coming together. But the Paul Manafort story, I think, is more interesting in how this case is likely to be prosecuted. I don't know if you guys have followed any of this, but Paul Manafort had reached a plea deal.
Yes,
to cooperate. This is a former campaign manager for Trump, and so he was working hand in hand with the Mueller investigation. But then, I guess also at the same time, he was going back to the White House and working with the White House and giving them the information he was getting and using that to help secure up a defense for Trump and for Paul Manafort himself. Only it seems to be that that Mueller and his team were actually aware of this, that they thought it was very likely that Manafort would still feed information to Trump. So I'm sure there's like a spy term for this that I've heard in movies before.
Double agent.
But no, he's not a double agent, more of a useful idiot, because he was unaware of the service that he was providing, right? He thought that he was getting information from Mueller and using that to help himself and Trump out. And really, he was still helping Mueller's investigation now. Because one of the charges that we're likely to see has to do with some form of collusion. And if they can prove that Manafort was feeding information back to Trump when he was supposedly under a plea agreement deal, then that's a big part of your collusion right there. Any attempt for Trump to try and actively disrupt or shut down the investigation would be collusion.
It'd be obstruction of justice as well, wouldn't it?
Yes, that's probably the better term for it.
All I know is if I'm the judge for Manafort, there's your plea deal. See ya.
Well, actually, Manafort, he kind of, I don't know what the term would be, like rescinded his plea deal. So that's when all this came out. Like, he decided not to go ahead with the plea. And then leaks started coming out that Mueller's team was like, yeah, we saw this coming. We kind of knew that this would be because he thinks he's got enough. Manafort probably can't get enough information to protect his ass, but if he can get enough information to give Trump something to fight with, then he's more likely to get pardoned by Trump anyway. So I think that's what Manafort is fishing for. He helps out Trump enough to the point where Trump can keep out of danger, and then therefore, if Manafort still ends up in hot water, he's pardoned.
Mm-hmm. This is why decent people don't get into politics, because, yeah, sounds awesome.
Well,
I don't know what this has to do with politics. This is just criminal activity.
No, but this is
wait. Yeah. Wait. Let's be honest here.
Yeah,
a pretty good argument could be made that I'm not saying they are 100% the same, but they do cross paths quite frequently.
A little bit,
So, I mean, it's how much of this is do these people look at as this is business as usual? What I'm not talking about whether that's a valid way to look at it. I'm saying that they would look at it as like, this is business as usual. Why are you persecuting me?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to probably be Trump's last remaining defense. When the whole story's laid out and he can't deny it any longer, he's going to lean on his supporters going, oh, well, this is what it takes to fight dirty and be successful in politics. It's kind of this backwards thinking of like, instead of having the most American person represent this country, it is now a representation of how American you are by how dirty you're willing to fight in order to achieve the presidency. Trump is president, therefore he is automatically the most American. Not what should happen, which would be the most American citizen actually gets into office.
Or, best person for the job.
Well, that
crazy line of thinking.
That's what I'm kind of trying to describe. The most American would be like the most qualified and has what we consider to be, traditional American ideals, of which Trump has none except for making money. And apparently that's the only one that's worth anything anymore, I guess.
Pretty much since the 80s.
Yeah, that's when Trump made it big, right?
I was just talking about our country in general.
No, I know, but Trump being this representative figure of America, I mean, that all came about in the 80s.
Yeah, we tossed out Jesus and brought in the dollar sign somewhere in the mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I swear at some point I remember an interview with Oliver Stone when he was talking about when he was making Wall Street that Trump was one of many people he pulled from for inspiration for the Gordon Gekko character. It's not solely based on Trump.
Right.
But I mean, let's be honest, the infamous speech that he gives where he's like, greed is good. I think we could all see Trump giving that speech, especially at that point in time in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And fuck it, I could see him saying it now. He would try to rationalize it a little bit more than just flat out being like, hey, yeah, greed is good. Whatever. He might be like, well, it's when we're keeping America's best interest at heart over anybody else, if we're greedy, that's good. I could totally see him making that argument.
Well, yeah, there's people who are... Trump is kind of a character that turns off a lot of people just kind of naturally, I think. There's some people that just never going to, like me personally, I've never watched, there's a Apprentice show or anything like that.
Yeah.
The whole kind of character has just been greasy and weird and whatever. But now that he's, a president and a Republican president, there's just flat out people that are never going to agree with him on anything. He is just the enemy, period. But if Trump were a fictional character in a Netflix drama, these people would be eating it up.
They fucking love him. Yeah.
They would love him. They would be rooting for him to get out of trouble each and every week, watching him get by just by the skin of his teeth.
It's like me watching Billions. Bobby Axelrod as a real person would not be cool.
No, he's not. He's
I love watching him on Billions.
He fucks over people. He claims to care about family values, but really through his actions in the show, you realize he really just cares about himself.
I think one of the things that Billions does good, though, is that everybody's just a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
There's really no clear-cut good guy, bad guy.
Yeah,
there isn't. Yeah,
there's no good people on that show.
Last season showed us how far Chuck was willing to go and break the law himself, with the idea of, I break the law, but I'm doing it in the name of the law for the greater good of the law. I know that my cause is good, therefore I can break the law. And look, I'm more Team Chuck than I am Team Bobby Axe, but I understand that they're both equally flawed.
Absolutely.
And neither one of them are good people.
No.
Yeah, that's one of the I think it's, really, since what? Oz, The Sopranos, those type shows started getting real popular. It's become kind of a trope now, to where there really is no one that's above reproach. There's no one who's, who's sadly, as much as we demand people in public life and in political life be these Christ-like figures who've never made any serious mistakes, never taken any missteps, or else we shame them on Twitter and whatever, start hashtag fucking mafia shit against them.
Right.
It's like in real life we want one thing, but in our entertainment we understand the reality of it, but we haven't accepted that. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, I understand, and I'm wondering how much of this is different. I think that we are in entertainment-wise, in our movies have definitely showed us this. We're kind of seeing this new age of the anti-hero. Even like in the actual hero movies, like DC decided to go the route of like the flawed characters, and that they're not quite perfect. But Oz and Sopranos are perfect examples, but a show like Breaking Bad kind of puts it into the next level. You kind of have a wrong side of the law to start with when you're talking about organized gangs and prisons. But Breaking Bad was a story of a school teacher who ends up doing shit just as horrible as Tony Soprano ever did, right? So we love anti-heroes, and it seems like we love them even more at this age right now, where yeah, I mean, maybe it's just from information, the flood of information. Like nobody's private life can really stay private if somebody wants to find out. Like this idea that everybody's got some dirt on them. But then I question how much different that is, because all throughout, I mean, if you look at just our movies as a kind of a barometer for our society, we've always loved the anti-hero. Yeah. I mean, cowboy and Indian movies were based on people who lived outside the law. But I would say somebody might get deputized here and there, but at the end of the day, you know, they gunned down a few Indians and ain't nobody going to say peep about it.
Well, that was because that was when it was acceptable to make Indians the clear-cut bad guys and the, you know, manifest destiny heading west, the good, you know, the good guys. But I mean, there seems to be a lack of redemption anymore. Like even if you look at something like if you look at a movie like Lethal Weapon, Mel Gibson's character was like, you know, the dude who just did not give a fuck. He had nothing to live for. Yeah, but I mean, by the end of that movie, he walks up to Murtaugh's house, knocks on the door, hands his daughter the bullet and says, "Give that to your father." You know, the bullet that he was always saving to kill himself with. He goes, he'll understand what that means. There was some sort of redemption there. Yep. You know, and if you go back even to the Western
character growth.
Yeah, even if you go back to like the Westerns, like Rio Bravo, Dean Martin's character was, you know, a former lawman who just started drinking himself to death. And then John Wayne comes and he's like, "Look, I need you to sober your ass up and I need you to, you know, do the right thing for a fucking change." And he does eventually in the end. Like now it's like there's just no redemption. We just wallow in like our amorality, our entertainment.
I think yes and no. I think that to continue with Breaking Bad as a good example of this, I think it is. There is no redemption in that story, right? In the way that we would traditionally describe it, like the examples that you were giving, Rich. There's no just easy resolution to it and natural character growth, and he comes out of it a better man at the end, right? He just goes into fucking hiding because he ruined everything, and we assume he dies alone. So there is no redemption. But on the other hand, hasn't the redemption for Walter White been right there with his character the whole time? It was the same type of redemption that Tony Soprano had, and it's really just a shield. It's I did it for my family. It's the idea that everything that Walter White did, he only whether you agree with the actions that he took or not, they are justified because he did it for his family.
But see, I would argue,
which I think is honestly people buying into bullshit because
exactly
they really watch this show. Well, you know, but I think that's part of what allows us to keep this identity with these anti-heroes.
Well, it's funny because Walter White in the last episode when he goes and visits Skyler, he's like, you know, I liked it. I was good at it. I did it for me. He finally admits that. Tony Soprano never admitted. He just, I just do this to feed my family and provide for my wife. No, you were a gangster before you had your kids and before you even married your wife.
Yes.
Okay, you chose that lifestyle before you even were finished with high school. All right, you did it because it was easier than getting a square job and going to Rutgers or Seton Hall for 4 years and sitting in a cubicle and wasting away in middle management. You know, that's why you did it. And I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's like, it is kind of weird. It's like our fictional characters are kind of like idealized versions of how we'd like people to be. And I think it's just we've dropped a lot of pretense of, well, there has to be in the end some overall redeeming, you know, event that happens that brings this person back into the fold of like, you know, now you're once again a productive, good member of society. And now it's just like, nah, fuck it. You know, fucked up people stay fucked up. And that's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. And I mean, look at what we have. We had two very flawed candidates in 2016, very flawed. And people were willing to overlook the flaws because, well, they had the right letter by their name.
Right. And that attitude that I was describing earlier about people who are supporting Trump and going, well, sure, you know, he may have bent and sometimes even broken the law, but like, He just he just was doing what needed to be done to achieve that goal, right? He was playing the game. And that same defense was used for Hillary. Like, okay, yeah, sure, she's got some shady stuff in her past, maybe, but don't you want that? Somebody who's been through the shit? Like, she's a fighter. She's proved that.
Well, I mean, if if fighters make the best presidents, then we need to get Mike Tyson to run 2020.
Floyd Mayweather, 2020.
As long as he doesn't have to read from the teleprompter, yeah, we'll be all good.
Forgot about that.
Hey, Floyd, read this. Motherfucker, you want me to knock you out? You know I can't read.
He is the richest athlete in the world. You can't get a tutor?
When you are worth as much as him, you don't need to read. You have other people around you. You pay to do that for you.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you could just go, hey, white boy, read this.
Also, yeah, it's not like he's off the rails. Like, it's pretty set. You don't want to throw a monkey wrench like knowing how to read shit.
He spills a cup of coffee. He's like, get me a white boy to clean it up. A blonde-haired, blue-eyed white boy so I can enjoy that shit. Well, ultimately, Trump is, what a lot of people wanted, man. He tells it like it is.
Yeah.
And
he's your outsider.
He's an outsider. He puts, at least he gives lip service to putting America first, and et cetera, et cetera. And it doesn't matter that he's been married and divorced how many times and is of questionable business practices, and it just he says what I want to hear, and it's like, well,
yeah, and facts and reality aren't going to get in the way of that. I mean, this recent news with the GM plant closings and retooling of their business seems to be heavily affected by Trump's tariffs and his trade deals that he's been setting up. And
yes and no.
Well, I mean, it's a factor.
People not buying cars.
It's a factor
because of the tariffs.
Yeah, I understand it's not the only factor, but it is a factor. So there are probably a decent amount of Trump supporters that are now going to lose their jobs working for GM, right? So they themselves might go, oh, this guy's full of shit. Turns out Trump didn't do shit for me. Actually, he made my life worse with his ridiculous policies. But that doesn't change anyone else's view of Trump. They're just like, well, if GM had more faith in the president and held in there, then I don't know, whatever lie they believe that they've been fed, that eventually a trade war is something that can be won, I guess, is the bigger lie there that they're buying into.
Well, I used to kind of balk at the idea of what you would say is when you were talking about the automobile bailout, and you're like, I wasn't for it, whatever. If they're not providing a good enough product, let them fail. And my point was, okay, well, the bailout, at least how it was presented a lot of the time, was this isn't necessarily to keep them afloat as a business. This is to make sure that everyone that worked for them doesn't get fucked over, and we don't have all these people being dumped into the job market,
right?
Et cetera, et cetera. But
also the ripple effect of how is this going to affect not just Ford and GM, but like all of their suppliers.
Exactly. But in reality, what happened? A lot of that money was used to give bonuses to the CEOs who ran the company into the ground. Mm-hmm. Golden parachutes to ones that were let go, and people were bought out for 10 cents on the dollar for their fucking retirement. Sorry, but instead of all the retirement benefits and packages and pension that you've been working towards, we'll buy you out for $150,000 and you can have a nice life.
Right.
Which is a drop in the bucket to GM, especially when they're getting billions in taxpayer money. And so I've had to
right. Well,
revise. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like $150,000 bailout for some guy over 30, he'd be like, oh, this is a windfall. But if some guy who's like 55, he's looking at that like, this is the last amount of money I will ever see. Right? This is it. I have to live off the $150 for however long I fucking live.
Yeah, and then he's going to Walmart going, you need a greeter for minimum wage, you know? I mean, because he has no other choice. But I've had to revise my thinking on this, and you know what? Fuck it, let GM fail. And I kind of agree with Trump on this. If we're going to give you subsidies, if you're going to take American taxpayer money to subsidize your business to keep you in business, then you owe some loyalty to the American people. And if you're going to close American plants and ship those jobs overseas, then fuck, you ain't getting no more subsidies. Period. Mm-hmm. I mean, the plant that was, listening to NPR this week, it was really interesting because it's amazing how you never hear these stories until decades down the line. But the shady bullshit that went on in Poletown to get that plant opened, as far as seizing people's property and businesses' property, and a lot of people. This was in the 1980. They haven't been paid still. This isn't like eminent domain used to mean the government shows up and says, here's the value of your property. We're going to give you this money. You had so long to get out. We need this property. As shitty as that is, you at least got money. These people were told, get the fuck out. And a lot of them didn't get paid. They never got the money that was promised to them. And GM opened that plant, and now they're closing it, and, we're going to just ship the jobs overseas. Fuck you. Fuck you. You get no more of our money. Go to China and ask them for fucking money. Go to Mexico and ask them for fucking money. Go to Canada and ask them for money. If that's where you want to ship these fucking jobs, and that's where you want to, you want to put these jobs in countries who ain't going to give you a fucking dime compared to what America's going to give you, then you can go beg at their fucking doorstep. Bye. I no longer have any sympathy for you because ultimately the workers are not going to be taken care of. It's going to be the people at the top. We're going to make sure that you continue to fail upward because that's the true American dream in 2018. To reach a certain level of success to where you cannot fail downwards. Unless you stick your dick in a child or sexually harass or assault a woman these days. Those are the two things that will bring you down quicker than anything.
There's still a little bit of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, but it's pull yourself up just enough so that you can get into a tax bracket that you will be considered white, and then you can continue to. If you do fail, you will fail up, right? Like you're making $30,000 a year and you fail, you're not failing up from there.
Yeah, you're going back down to 25, 30, or 20.
Right. You get into executive class and you're making six figures. Then, no matter what color you are in the white bracket, and whites fail up. We take care of our own.
Or if you're like middle management, you can fail and make a lateral move.
Oh, I see that at my job all the time. They just move them into another department.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like Catholic Church.
Yeah. Oh, your fucking children in Pittsburgh? Well, we can't have that.
We'll send you to Seattle.
We'll put you in Youngstown, Ohio. There you go.
See if you got Young in the name. You'll love it.
But then when they get there, they realize that all these Ohio children, half of them are little wet brain retards. They're not as hot as the ones in the upper class cities.
A lot of inbreeding. Cities know how to keep their mouth shut.
There's a lot of inbreeding in Youngstown. What the fuck's going on here?
Doing a lot of picking for lice on the kids' heads while they're going down on them. It's like
checking them for lice. Once you gag down that cock snot, I got to give you this special shampoo. They're jumping all over the place down here, man. I mean, it's like the priest goes to molest the kids, and it's like the kids from Gummo. They end up molesting the priest,
The priest is like, no, I'm fine, actually. It's getting late. I've got a headache.
I wouldn't fuck you with the Pope stick and the cardinal pushing. Get out of here, kid. What's wrong with you?
You are the second person I've ever heard refer to Gummo. And the last time I heard about it was at least 10 years ago.
But have you seen it?
I have seen like the first half hour, and I was like, it's enough for me.
Yeah. I didn't think that was the type of movie to keep you at rapt attention.
Yeah.
But
Especially considering its lack of plot.
Yeah. Or, general acting.
Or seemingly like the producer, Harmony Korine, wanted anybody to actually watch it. It would almost seem like a dare.
Yeah.
Like,
who needs cinematography, editing, real actors?
hey, we got this kid in a bathtub of water that is like algae green. Can we tape some bacon next to him on the wall? What? How does it drive the story? I don't fucking know. It'll give the internet something to talk about. Tape that bacon to the wall right there.
I tell you, honest, I have not had spaghetti. I have not eaten spaghetti since I've seen Gummo. And it's not like I was this huge spaghetti eater in the first place. It's not my favorite pasta shape. It's kind of the dumbest one when you really think about it. And the one that really clings the least to the sauce. But I just can't even really watch other people eat spaghetti. I just find it to be a disgusting food, and I blame Gummo and I blame Harmony Korine.
Well, Jesus Christ. I was going to go get some shit and make a big old fucking pot of spaghetti because I could eat off it for like a week. Now I know, like you're going to be like, yeah. And I'm going to be like, what's wrong with you? Gummo.
Sit in front of him and eat it.
Jesus Christ.
I just, I don't see the appeal of it. It's messy and weird.
Delicious. What are you talking about?
It's not like spaghetti is more tasty than eating penne pasta. And penne,
But it's not like it's any different. It's just different, just a different type of noodle.
Well, penne is a lot easier to eat, and it actually holds more sauce.
So wait a minute, what is it? Lady and the Tramp, when they're eating spaghetti and they both suck on the noodle before they kiss?
Right.
That's like torture porn to you?
No, that's like the only good application of spaghetti. If I had
Dogs
experiences that of eating spaghetti that involved, loved ones or something, you'd have a better.
Fuck.
I don't know.
You had an ex-girlfriend one time that like packed her shit full of spaghetti. He's like, come down here and get some. And you're like, oh, well, I associate spaghetti with good pussy.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. I no longer associate it with Gummo. Thank you.
Well, it's not like I had any particular animosity towards spaghetti. It's one of these things that once something turns you off of it, you start to see, you start to wonder what was the appeal in the first place? Why did I ever eat spaghetti? There's so many noodle shapes. Like spaghetti is the dumbest one. And I can't think of an advantage. I mean, unless you want to do the Lady and the Tramp thing, what is the advantage of eating your pasta in spaghetti shape?
Yeah,
even angel hair is better.
I was about to say, yeah.
It's
What
the
about
same
like?
thing. It's just thinner.
Yeah. It's a slightly different texture, but it's just still, I'd rather have, any other noodle, bow tie,
Fettuccine.
penne.
Yeah, whatever. It's just honestly, to me, the noodle, it's never mattered. It's just like
Let's see this conversation going this way.
it's more of the sauce. What you do with the
I know
sauce.
this is a shocker. I almost didn't bring it up.
I'm really trying to think if there's
It
ever
is the
been
sauce, though, isn't it? Right? The noodle's a fucking delivery service.
exactly. Yeah. It's I'm sitting here trying to think, like, has there ever been a movie or a television show or something that's turned me off of food? And it's like, nah, I can't think of one. But I mean, if you
Lost
would,
Boys,
didn't bother me.
how's your maggots, Billy? Yeah. No, I mean, maybe the next time I ate rice after that, I got a little squeaked out by it, but yeah, it hasn't ruined rice for me.
But then if you look at me, you can see that not much food has been ruined for me. So, that's, there's also that.
I've seen The Exorcist multiple times, and I still enjoy pea soup.
Exactly. Just whatever. It looks like that ultra fake puke that they had from The Exorcist.
And women masturbating with crucifixes. Didn't turn me off of that either.
Well, I have to say, the next time I went to my mom's house after watching that movie for the first time, and I saw a crucifix hanging on the wall, I was like, "Does that thing smell like fish, Ma?" And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Never mind. It's just it's too hard, too much to get into, Ma."
Well, okay, so we kind of got way off track there.
Yeah, we did.
But I did want to talk. I did want to talk about GM some more because part of GM's announcement was that they are doing these factory closings and moving of manufacturing as part of retooling for a primarily truck and SUV market that they're apparently looking at. I mean, this is really no surprise coming after Ford's announcement earlier this year that they were going to stop production on most of their sedans. And, well, I think pretty much all their small cars.
Like I told you, the first thing I saw when I saw this story is like, didn't we see this movie before?
Everyone
wants trucks and SUVs, so that's what we're going to focus on.
It wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah.
Well, everyone wants bigger cars. Like, however big they can make a car, people will buy it as long as they can afford it, and it's not going to cost $80 to fill the tank every time.
Well, that's the thing. Is like I'm just telling you, I cannot wait to get rid of my truck. I cannot wait. The $300 tag can suck a dick. The $70 it takes to fill it up can suck a dick. I only get a week out of a tank of gas can suck a dick. Like, I don't know why everyone wants all these trucks and SUVs. I can't wait to get mine back.
Yeah, and you're not alone. I mean, there's so many people that I've given rides to in my little Fiesta when I'm working for Lyft that I get and want to talk about, I bet, this thing is so great on fuel, isn't it? You get 35 miles per gallon? Oh, that's fantastic. And they're just practically drooling over it. I'm not saying like, everyone wants to drive a Fiesta, but I think that there's still like this large market of people that want to drive smaller cars. And it's like, and right after the Ford announcement, I had just bought a Ford and was noticing how many of like roughly the same model year as mine too, because you can the design is pretty standard throughout even the different sizes of vehicles. You can kind of point out where the different model years, and everybody's driving these things. Fusions and Focuses and Fiestas, and they're just fucking everywhere. And yeah, there's a lot of trucks and SUVs and all that too. I wonder how much of this is about that it's not that nobody wants to drive the cars, it's that the primary market wants the SUVs and the trucks. The people who are buying brand new and are used to every year, a couple of years, trading in or just doing a lease program on a vehicle and always having a new vehicle. It's the secondary market. Everyone who wants a car is probably picking up a 3-4 year old car later and buying it off of the secondary market.
Well, I mean, I can tell you when I had my GMC 1500, that thing had a 350 with a 4-barrel carb in it. It was the last year before all GMC trucks went to fuel injection. That thing sucked down the gas. The other car that we had was a Dodge Neon. If I didn't need to haul anything, believe me, we took the Neon everywhere we could go because it was just ridiculous. That truck was ridiculous on gas.
Right.
I mean, to me, if you are possibly going to need to move stuff, if you work in construction, if you're in a band, if you do sound or something like that, yes, you're going to need a vehicle that can haul everything. But for it to be an everyday vehicle, that's a luxury. You better have a lot of just disposable income to throw into that gas tank just so you can drive around in that thing. And the tags as well.
Yeah. Honestly, the only reason I got it was the first time in my life my budget didn't dictate the car that I drove. I actually had a choice.
Right.
Now it's like, yeah, okay, cool, got that out of my system. Can I go back to a tank of gas lasting me like 2 weeks, please?
Well, it's
I want a Prius.
You're right. This is a cycle that we've seen the automotive industry go through.
Yes, They said this shit in 2007, and 2 years later, what the fuck happened?
Right. Well, I mean, 2007 was finally coming to realize that the hiking gas prices post 9/11 are actually affecting the types of automobiles that they're making, which shouldn't be any big surprise, right? This goes back to the 70s. They're making nothing but huge boats. American car companies are making all boats, and gas prices were soaring, scarcity was up, and people were buying tiny little hatchbacks from foreign markets that were really easy on gas. And yeah, I mean, SUVs and trucks started becoming really big in the 2000s and then started to wane in popularity because of how expensive it was to fill the tank on them. And so they started going, well, we need to start rolling out some more sedans. This is what people are looking for now, looking for more compact cars. And then the hybrid technology and alternative fuel technology and all that shit comes along, and gas prices start to dip down a little bit. And again, they're going to buy as big a car as they can afford to maintain. You know, I like driving small cars because I just like small cars. I see having a bigger car is just like having a bigger target for other assholes to hit. But I think the market's proven that most Americans, like I said, will drive as big a car as their budget will allow them.
Yeah, I'm with Chris on that. You know, I inherited that truck from my dad when he died, and when it was stolen and found stripped like 3 weeks, a month later in Detroit, I was like, oh, that's a damn shame. Can I get the insurance money for it? Yeah, let me go get something that's a little bit more practical. And that's what I've stuck with ever since. I don't feel the need to drive a, nice truck, sorry about your penis type vehicle, and most people I know who insist on driving those type trucks are some of the most insufferable assholes I've ever met.
We might know one of them. Might do a podcast with them.
I mean, it's just, I'm not saying that, correlation is causation. I'm not saying that, an asshole has to drive one of those, because I've ran into assholes in Priuses.
Oh, there's assholes in Priuses, yeah.
Yeah, enjoying first huff of their own fart because, they just think so highly of themselves. But, yeah, it's... And here in Michigan, any cold weather state where the roads get bad, you always have the assholes who think, I have a big vehicle. I can drive 5 times the speed limit and be safe. And usually those are the ones that cause the most deaths when they fucking lose control of their vehicle.
No, it's a trope, but it's true. When you skid, all your tires are skidding instead of just 2. Out there in Minnesota a couple weeks ago, I had a Tahoe, took a corner a little too quick. Nobody was there. It's fishtailing like a motherfucker, but that thing had all-wheel drive. Didn't fucking matter.
Exactly. So I just... if GM is going to focus on that, then why I don't know. Why do I constantly hear in the news about them, bemoaning the fact that, what is it, the Volt? Is that the one that has...
the Chevy Volt? The battery-powered car?
Yeah, well, it's the cost of the batteries, but they've dropped 7% every year. So when it hits when it drops to a certain level of affordability, that's when they'll take over the market. Blah 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 blah. Well, I just heard a report on NPR that General Motors claims that they're a year or two out from that, like 2020, the price of the batteries will hit that point. Why aren't they starting to ramp up production of those if that's what they truly believe?
And didn't we hear the last couple of years, the Volt was huge in China?
Yeah. Well, I think the Volt is part of what the Volt and other cars like this that, either are battery powered or, hybrid of some sort. None of these have reached the point where they're as cheap as an equivalent vehicle would be if it was just gas powered, right? So, not comparing, if you, what's the big Toyota model? Starts with the Prius.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So Prius is just it's basically a Corolla with a funny back end and a hybrid power system, right? But it's going to be a lot more expensive than the Corolla, probably, the traditional Corolla. And maybe you'll get some, at one point you could get some tax subsidies on that. But ultimately, nobody's going to buy a car based on that. They're going to buy the car they think they can afford. But what the Prius and what the Volt does, and what all the production of alternative fuel vehicles does for the car companies is keeps the overall emissions output for their quote unquote fleet down. It helps average it out. It allows them to continue to make big gas guzzling trucks, because they just have to show the government, look, across all of our vehicles, this is our average gas consumption. That's what they have to maintain, not vehicle by vehicle. So it's not like we're shooting for all of our vehicles to be 40 miles per gallon. We have this line of vehicles that uses no fuel at all. So now we can have this line that gets 20 miles per gallon. So that's all. Like, the alternative fuel vehicles are just there. So sure, some people are going to buy. Some people who want to be that are into the technology of it, or into the whole image of it. They want to be seen as green. They feel like they're doing their part, what have you. There's that market, but that market is not that huge. If these were just being marketed and sold as to alternative fuel vehicles to people who actually cared about that shit, they would have been discontinued already. That's not profitable. But it allows them to make huge SUVs at the same time. That's really what it's doing. It's subsidizing it's like how they do emissions for any large company. They don't look at plant by plant what is going out into the atmosphere. They're going, what's the overall for your company? So they can have make one really clean refinery for oil or something that has almost no emissions. And isn't that wonderful? But really all that's doing, it's probably not even making them money. It's allowing them they're losing money on that plant so that they can make a whole lot more on the rest of the plants that are just belching even more contaminants out into the air.
Oh.
So there you go.
They're going to need a new plant because they're getting rid of the Volt.
Yeah. Are they getting rid of it completely?
Yep. It is bye-bye.
I'm kind of surprised by that. I mean, they'll still have... the Volt was the hybrid one, and the Bolt is full-on electric. Are they still making the Bolt with the V?
I think the Bolt died a really quick death.
That's dead already.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Let me check with the internets.
It's interesting. But yeah, I mean, so GM is going to just sell big cars and big SUVs and trucks. Ford is going to do the same.
That's like a great strategy.
Which means that they are, I think short term, that probably is a good strategy for them. They are going to lean on a reliable product with a reliable market of people who have reliable turnover of their vehicles, who like doing lease programs and like trading in their vehicles after a couple years and getting the shiny new model. The same thing that most people do now with their iPhones.
But I have to say,
by the way, the Bolt's still around. My bad.
But, I just wanted to finish my thought real quick. That will be profitable for them short term, but what's the long term plan for that? Because if you can't, what do you do then with that 2-year-old vehicle? If your secondary market is still interested in buying fuel efficient, compact vehicles, people are buying a used vehicle, then what do you do with all those SUVs and trucks now that everyone's traded in? Part of the profit of a lease program for a car company is the idea that they're making a healthy dollar off that vehicle again when they're selling it as pre-owned. Mm-hmm. And I think that secondary market for all these SUVs is going to dry up because, again, the people who need small cars, especially around this area, or are on fixed incomes, limited budgets, and want to be able to fill up a tank for $20, that market's still here.
Well, I guess
so we're gonna continue to buy Toyotas and Hondas.
And my question is, you bring up the long-term strategy. What happens when the economy goes in the shitter here in a few years and everyone gets rid of their SUVs and their trucks?
Right, or just gas prices go up because the Saudis do something stupid.
Yeah, the expiration date on the guilt of them doing what they did to that journalist is quickly approaching. So, you know what I'm saying? Like our bad, sorry. We'll make sure gas prices are around $2.29 a gallon here for a little bit.
Right.
That's coming to an end. You know, that's not anyone who thinks like, oh, this is due to, the president or whatever. Gas prices have nothing to do with the president. I can't believe that's one of those lies that we as a society just kind of all look at each other and go, yeah, we all know it's bullshit, but whatever. Just let people say it. Don't even argue with them. But anyway, I wanted to get back to something you said about the leasing of vehicles. It's something I've noticed with every single fucking person I know that's leased a vehicle is they are handcuffed by, well, I can't do this because I'll go over my mileage when I turn in my lease. I don't understand that. So why do you have, what's the point of having a vehicle that you can't take and, do anything besides, get up, go to work with?
Well, I
like if you want to go on a trip, you can't take it because, I'll fuck up my mileage.
Well, yeah, but for like a lease, a short-term lease of like 2 years, that lease price is really not so much based on the value of the vehicle. It's how much wear and tear is expected on that vehicle. And
it's also based on, at least the way GM is, how many you can get 15,000 a year, you can get 12, you can get 10, you can get fucking 20. You're just going to pay more.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
People get the low mileage lease program thinking I'm saving a lot of money, and look at how I can get this car for under $200 a month. This is great. But then, they end up paying through the nose when they go to trade it in because they didn't. That budget of miles did not fit their lifestyle.
Well, I mean, at least all the insurance companies I've dealt with, when I go to get auto insurance, they calculate between 10 and 12,000 miles a year as average use. And it seems like leasing, their average use is somewhere between like 7 and 9,000 miles a year.
No, that's not GM. Like the lowest you can go is 10.
I don't know. I once again, because these are people that I don't really know all that well, I don't ask them their business. But I mean, if you ask them, hey, can I get a ride to the store that's a mile and a half away? Oh man, mileage on my lease, man, I can't do it. Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, those are people who don't know how much they drive. It sounds like too.
I can imagine you're saying like 8,000 miles in a year. I can see maybe a company like Jaguar or BMW going with a low mileage lease program like that, because maybe that's not the car you take out every day. Maybe you have the Beamer to take out on the weekends to show off, but you're not even hardly fucking driving it in the wintertime.
Maybe you just have cheap friends, Rich.
That kind of makes sense if you wanted to lease it as a secondary luxury vehicle. But if you're everyday vehicle, I mean, if anyone's offering you under 10,000 miles, don't take it. You're going to end up fucked over on that deal.
I think it's a little bit of what you just said, and Chris, ding ding, yes, a lot of what you just said.
What did you say?
Mile and a half's going to break you.
Yeah, it's people that didn't really take into account how much they drive, and then it's also a lot of my friends are just cheap bastards. So, it's like, I can't drive. It's like, really? Okay, all right.
No, trust me, I made that mistake when I was young. I leased a car when I was delivering pizzas. Yeah.
God damn.
Put it this way, I had to find a crazy incentive program for my next car, and I had to buy it. Because it was ignorance on my part. Oh yeah, 12,000. Great. Yeah, well, I'm like 23 and I drive everywhere, and I drive for a living. So that's a bad call on my part.
Yeah, and due to the nature of the environments most of my friends grew up in, we hit adulthood with these problems a little bit later in life, usually in our early 30s. So, at that point in time when we were all around that age, you heard a lot of bitching and moaning about, Jesus fucking Christ, man, 23 cents a fucking mile when I go over it. This is bullshit, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what? First of all, why are you leasing? You don't make that type of money. Buy a fucking hoopty. What are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, well, not a hoopty, but you get my point. Like, just buy a reliable used car. That's the money you make. You're living like you make like six figures. You don't.
You make 18 grand a year. Why do you have a car payment?
Leasing is fine if you make enough where you don't care if you're just going to have a car payment for the rest of your life. It's not an issue. And you always want to have a new vehicle. But other than that, I mean, it makes no sense at all. But, that's, again, with these low mileage leases, they can entice people. They go, oh, well, what can I afford to buy? Oh, it's $200 a month for a Ford Focus. Or it's $200 a month to lease a Jaguar. Oh, I want to drive the Jaguar, right? Only when you get done paying it, it's probably averaged out more like $400 a month to drive that Jaguar.
Yeah, because they don't think about,
and you don't own any of it.
They don't think about it. Trust me, it's a mistake I made with the truck. You're not thinking about the tag. You're not thinking about your insurance going up. You're not thinking about how much this thing needs gas. You're just thinking about, I'm only this much a month.
That's another thing
for the payment.
Yeah, our economy is doing fairly well right now, but it looks like we might be on the precipice of another recession. And it's not just about how that it costs $50 to $80 to fill up the tank for the SUV or the truck. It's how much more expensive the maintenance is, the tires, just all the parts in general. The tag on it, because it's based on weight, I would guess, in many states like it is in Michigan. The bigger the car you have, the more you're going to pay on that thing when you go to register it.
Well, I know
all of that adds up. I mean, this is a short-sighted plan for both GM and Ford.
Well, I mean, that's what Americans we excel at. Mm-hmm. Plan for the long term. Why would we do that?
Right. Well, I mean, if you had a daddy who could come in and every time that you fucked up in life just went, oh, that's all right, here's a few $1,000s to keep you on your feet, send me your new address, then, why would you make any long-term plans?
Yeah, I have a friend who drives...
Especially if your daddy's never going to die, right? Your daddy's the American government. It's Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam ain't going anywhere anytime soon, right? They'll be there to bail us out no matter what we do.
Yeah, but, look, if you're constantly being bailed out by your creepy Uncle Sam, eventually you should have to sit on his lap. All right? Like, come on now. All right? You God damn it, you knew where that money came from. You knew the deal. Don't start this shit of getting shocked when he's like, okay, now it's time for you to play hide the pickle with your uncle. And he's like, I don't think so. No, it's time. Okay.
Not only did you name this podcast, but I think you coined a phrase for our podcast going forward. Creepy Uncle Sam. I love it.
But no, I have a friend who he just turned 30. He drives a big gas guzzling motherfucking car or SUV. It's not registered in his name. It's not insured in his name. And anytime he gets a ticket, mommy and daddy pay it, so their insurance doesn't go up. And I'm like, dude, and he's, why does it take you so long to get someplace? Because my parents are dead, cocksucker. Okay, I can't call anybody and go, oh yeah, I can't afford for my insurance to go up, so can I switch the car over to your name, insure it in your name, and oh, by the way, could you make a few calls and get this ticket taken care of? It doesn't work that way for a lot of people. And it's amazing to me. You're 30, and you still think like a fucking 16-year-old when it comes to that shit. Grow the fuck up. I mean, and believe me, if I'm telling you to grow the fuck up, you need to grow the fuck up. Trust me. All right? I mean, it's...
Yeah.
It's like when you get kicked out of Guns N' Roses for doing too many drugs. When a guy named
Metallica for
Slash,
drinking too much.
when a guy named Slash tells you have a drug problem, it's time to reevaluate what you've done with your life.
Yeah. I'm lucky enough to, have two alive parents, but also, parents that have, even in my adult life, have stepped in and helped me out here and there. But it's never been something that I've relied on.
Yeah, you're not counting on it.
It's not a source of income.
And almost every, I'm like trying to roll it back in my head, and I'm pretty sure that every time that I've asked my father to help me out with something, it's been because somebody else has stepped in and went, maybe it's time to see if somebody can help you out with this. Like somebody had to sit me down and go you're not moving forward here. You need a little bit of help. I still have too much pride to even think of
fake mom.
Of having, sometimes it's mom. It's if you asked your dad for money, he would give it to you, shit like that. But yeah, I don't know. I guess having a sense of pride and self-worth is I don't know. I guess those are evil terms now.
Yes.
They're not virtues anymore in a lot of people's
accountability.
lives. No, because accountability means you have to go, you know what, I fucked up. And you have to look at why you fucked up, and you have to make adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much easier to be a victim.
Yes.
It's so much easier just to yell, you're victimizing me. How dare you do this? And it's all right, well, what does that breed?
All right. Well, yeah,
Aaron and I were talking about on the Weedsman about how the millennials love to whine we're broke and it's not our fault. Well, actually, kind of, it's they're blaming, and every generation blames the generation before them, but no. Maybe if you didn't spend $2,000 on a 3-day music festival, maybe you could afford something like rent.
But it's more important. But see, those are things. They want experiences, Chris. Those are priceless, even though there's a price to be put on them, then they're willing to pay it for those experiences. Those are a house, a car. These are just things. And ultimately, if you've been told all your life, you're special, you're entitled to this, then you go, well, of course I'm always going to have a roof over my head. No one thinks they're going to be
never moving out.
No one thinks they're going to be homeless until they're living in their car. And no one thinks they're going to ever be living under a viaduct until they can't afford their car, or their car gets towed, or they get too many tickets for sleeping in parking lots in their car.
They want experiences, but they don't seem to be willing to put themselves in the moment of that experience either, right?
Yeah.
It's I want this. I want an experience. I want to travel. I go to Paris. What do I do in Paris? I get in line, find out what my friends are doing back home, and send them a bunch of pictures of me in Paris.
Yeah. Look
at me standing in line.
You can't even live in the moment.
Well, I have a friend. Her and her husband went to see Stonehenge, right?
Uh-huh.
Now,
wasn't as big as they thought it was.
Every picture of Stonehenge you see, it's just, you see the rocks and you're like, oh, that's cool. The reality when you get there is there's a path that is roped and fenced off that you have to stay on. You never get as close as those people that took those pictures.
It's actually really tiny, like in Spinal Tap.
Yeah. You're squinting and you're like, there was a Stonehenge in danger of being crushed by a dwarf. It's like you're squinting I think about a half a mile out. There it is. Get the camera. What's the zoom like on it? I zoomed in too much. It's all pixelated. Fuck. I can't get a picture. And then at the end of the little line that you have to walk along the fence, they go, oh, you want a picture of it? Here's an 8x10 for $50.
Right.
Oh, well, that's mighty Caucasian of you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm glad I had this experience. Get the fuck out of my face. And, something else I've noticed. I'm glad we're in my wheelhouse this week, because I've been hearing, I don't know why, but I've been hearing a lot of, complaining from the younger generation and us, the millennials. And something I've noticed is, Aaron and I talked about this a few days ago off the air. Like Chuck Palahniuk, that's how you pronounce his name, right?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I always
Fight Club, dude.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called a Fight Club guy.
You know, he wrote in Fight Club that, you know, basically Gen X is the middle children of history. Mm-hmm. And we're going to... history, it's not looking good for us. We're going to be the forgotten generation. It's going to go the greatest generation, baby boomers, millennials. There might be a paragraph of, you know, and then there was this generation who didn't do as well as their parents and blah, 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 and that's it. And what I've noticed is the age range for Gen Xers has stayed the same, but either the baby boomers are trying to get the older Gen Xers to be like, no, you're on the cusp of being a baby boomer, or the millennials are trying to get the younger Gen Xers, no, you're a zillennial.
Yeah, someone's tried to spew that bullshit at me.
Yeah, go fuck yourself, okay? Yeah. I'm not joining your fucking club so you have more numbers to play victimhood.
Well, I think that speaks to the kind of forgotten middle child state of Gen Xers. Like, we don't feel like we have this cohesive identity, so it is kind of easy to just divide us up into which one of us are closer to the boomers and which are closer to millennials.
Well, the problem is I got a real issue with playing second fiddle to other people. You didn't, you know, it's like the old blues song, you didn't want me till your other man was gone.
Right. Well,
like you didn't give a fuck about me one way or the other. You didn't even give a fuck about me enough to blame your problems on and go, oh, it's these fucking Gen Xers. No, you went straight to the baby boomers. These fucking baby boomers ruined our lives. Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden you want me to get in your camp so you can fluff your numbers up and fluff your stats? Fuck you. Rot, motherfucker.
Oh, well, there's also, I mean, these terms for generations that we use are ways that we can easily reference the way that our society has grown, and it's easy slots that we can put people into. But as far as science is concerned, this is like one step removed from astrology.
Right.
You know, as far as like what it tells you, or
that the arbitrary year you were born somehow influences your personality. Yeah, I can see that.
Right, or
to me it's
or like whatever the Chinese astrology is. You know, you're born in a certain year. Everyone born in these years is the year of the rat or whatever. I mean, what is it? It doesn't really mean anything.
Like, to me, it's not the year you were born influences. It's not the year you were born influences your personality. It's the culture at the time you were born into, and that's a shared experience.
Yes.
Of people of a certain age.
No, okay? Absolutely, and I'm not discrediting that side of it. I'm just saying, like, on an individual level, it doesn't really mean that much to me. I don't personally like strongly identify as a Gen Xer. I just understand that that's my classification.
Yeah, and I'm not constantly looking out for other Gen Xers to identify with and validate my opinions.
Right, and just like, you know, I know that my astrological sign is Leo. I don't really think that means anything. I mean, sure, I meet other Leos. I'm like, hey, there you go.
I just love Doug Stanhope's take on it. He's like, I'm so sick of this. Oh, that's my Scorpio coming out. I'm sorry. Like, no, fuck you. Don't act like if your parents fucked a month earlier or later, you'd be letting everything slide because you're just like, oh, well, I'm not a Scorpio. I'm an Aries, and that's, you know, blah, blah, blah. No, bullshit. You're an asshole. And that's what it is. And you're just looking for a reason to rationalize you being an asshole. And because some sexually unsatisfied fucking housewife sat down and put some fucking bullshit on a piece of paper and sold it to you for $40 and called it your horoscope. Oh, well, this validates everything I fucking feel.
And it's all based on the arrangements of stars, right? Which is only an arrangement that is seen from our perspective here on Earth, right? You go anywhere else in the fucking universe and you don't see the same constellations.
No, and half these stars are dead now by the time the light reaches us. So your personality is set by things that haven't existed for billions of years. Congratulations. That's even more bullshit than a talking snake. It really is. Like, we can at least teach a monkey to sign language. Maybe we could fucking, through CRISPR, get a snake to talk one day. That might happen. But you're going to tell me a star that burned out before there was even a single-celled microbe on Earth is deciding who you are? You're a fucking idiot. Look, I'll tell you for free. You're an idiot. That's who you are. There you go. All right? Cost you nothing.
This one's on the house.
Life. Yeah, this is it. Shit. I even buy you a drink so it can set in. I mean, like, boom. Like, oh, I am an idiot. God damn. I mean, it's irritating because when I talk to a lot of people who are younger than me, I see the progression happening, and I just look at them and I go, I can't say anything to you because you're going to deny it, because everybody denies it. Everybody thinks we're going to be the ones that change shit. No, you're not. There's going to be exceptional people from any generation, from any age group, that are going to do exceptional things.
Right.
Like hitting the lottery twice in 2 days type odds, you ain't going to be one of them. So you're going to sell the fuck out. Then you're going to lie to yourself and say, no, I didn't sell out. I bought in, because that's how you can sleep at night. And you're going to, just like the hippies went to be yuppies, and the free love generation became the me generation, and all this shit, you're going to do the exact same fucking things. That is just how shit works. Period. Unless you are one of those rare air, very on the margin people who just have such a disregard for maybe it's their own personal safety, maybe it's comfort, they don't care about it. They wake up in the morning and they're so single, they're like autistic almost in their single-mindedness about a certain subject, that they have to do something about that. Most people aren't those type of people, though. For most people, it's more important that the lights come on when you flip the switch. Yeah. You got heat in the winter. That you open the refrigerator and it's not just condiments sitting there.
I like living inside. I like climate control. I'm not ashamed to say it. I like having a car that I know is going to start.
And that's one of the things that I got into a conversation with Todd about, because Todd, will go on the road and, at one point him and I were having a discussion, and it was kind of heated, but it wasn't like we were like arguing. It was just, we were very passionate about making our points, and he was like, well, I can live in the weeds for 2 weeks with a sleeping bag. Can you say that? And I'm like, no, because I don't fucking want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Why am I an asshole because I want to fucking open a refrigerator and be able to make a sandwich?
Haven't we said this a million times? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
This is something that I was thinking about the other day, because I was reading the latest issue of Oblivion Song. And to explain, Oblivion Song is a comic by Robert Kirkman, who's obviously most famous for The Walking Dead. And much like Walking Dead, it's a personal story, but it's really telling the story about society, right? So in Walking Dead, the story is about how do you rebuild society. If you could start over again from scratch, how would you do so? What would it look like? And what decisions that you would make that were the same as when you were in the previous society, and what would be different? These are where the more interesting stories from The Walking Dead come from. In Oblivion Song, the story isn't an apocalyptic one. There's an event. It's basically like alternate dimensions, right? So if you have... this guy invents this machine that teleports a segment of Philadelphia onto another planet full of monsters, and nobody really can even figure out where they went. So it's kind of like The Leftovers, right? A bunch of people disappear, and it's this big mystery.
Punching horses.
Well, they
Rich gets it.
They eventually start finding these people. They get to this other dimension. They find these people are living on this weird alien planet full of monsters and start bringing them back. And then there's this conflict because one of the leaders of this group that has been living for this last decade on this totally hostile planet is fighting for his right to stay there because, well, from his perspective, yeah, it may have been tough to start off with, but they adapted. And they live in a small society where everyone's equal, where nobody's worried about how much money they're making or what car they're driving or anything like this. Everyone's contributing. Everyone in his small tribe is happy and content. You know, they might live in a more dangerous situation, but they don't necessarily live in fear either. And I don't know. I don't think it is like a easy black or white question, like which way is the better way to live. I think it speaks more to the power of humans to adapt to any situation. But I mean, the idea that like I do. Well, because this is interesting to me because I do actually think a lot about this. You know, when I was reading *Sapiens* by Noah Harari, and it's talking about how civilization came about. And there's a lot of talk about how do you measure happiness and what is happiness, right? And by most measures of happiness, a pre-industrialized and a pre-farming society seemed to be happier day to day.
Yeah, but you died at 30.
Right. They lived shorter lives. They lived harder lives, but they were happier. I don't know. Like I said, it's not a yes or no thing. Like I don't even know. If you were raised in that society, you wouldn't know any different, right? But if you just took yourself now and put you in that situation, there's no way we would thrive. Like, okay, sure, Todd maybe knows enough to figure out which berries aren't going to kill him. But I mean, as much of an adventurous spirit he may believe himself to have, I think he's either just going to go crazy or kill himself or come back to society, right? Those are his options.
Well, it's also probably easier to do when you know you got a place you're going back to.
I mean, sure, I think maybe there's a part of him that just is a loner mountain man for the rest of his life and finds fulfillment in that and lives a happy life. But I think more likely, now with a brain and body that have already been broken by modern society, he's going to be itching for something, like a cigarette, first of all.
Well, and again, you don't see him do it. You don't see him doing it permanently. He's still got a place to go back to.
Yes.
Well, I think
you still have that safety net of society. You don't have. It's not The Walking Dead where you're like, this is my life now. I have to make this work.
Well, Mandy brought up a good point the other. I don't even know how we got onto this conversation, but when drug addicts know that they're eventually going to get their fix, yeah, I'd kick it 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever whatever I need. That they know that at the end of the tunnel they're getting their fix. That's probably like kind of same thing with Todd. Yeah, I can live with Bush 2 weeks, but knowing I'm going back to my to living indoors, climate control, food in the fridge, you'll make do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you hit upon something that's rather interesting, and it's not an original thought on my end. I've heard many people, sociologists, whatever, say this. Especially in the social media era, and the deeper in it we get. When you were talking about people born like pre-industrial revolution, whatever, yes, they only lived to 30, but they seem to live happier lives because they didn't have anything to compare it to. You compared to your neighbors, and if your neighbors were in pretty much the same situation as you, then you saw your situation as normal. We now see the whole spectrum of what's out there. We see people living with so much that they could literally wipe their ass with $100 bills and would never feel the pain of just flushing that money down the toilet.
We lust after things that aren't even fucking possible.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? We sit around and dream about getting superpowers.
I mean, but
we're not even just dreaming about like, oh man, if I had his money, oh, if I could drive a car like that.
Well, it's when you have that comparison and the comparisons are completely unrealistic. Mm-hmm. How do you expect people to fucking be happy? And when we've really stopped going, you understand that this isn't reality, right? I'm not talking about like, wishing for superpowers. I'm talking about looking at these like sheiks and with their oil money and their children and going, that's just not a reality that's going to happen for you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Those people didn't work hard for that. It was just by pure luck that their family was in power when they were born in the area where they were, that had that resource that they could exploit and make money off of. There was no hard work involved in that.
Right.
This isn't the people this isn't There Will Be Blood. These aren't the people that went out and were drilling in the desert hoping to find something. These are people that were born into this. This is generation after generation after generation of wealth handed down. This is the end result that you're looking at, and you go, why can't my life be like that? Because you were born where the fuck you were born, period. End of fucking story. Now, if you want to aspire to be upper middle class, that's something that it's not as easy as a lot of people portray it to be, but it is an achievable goal,
I think that it kind of begs the question, like, what is happiness even worth? It's something that we prize as people, but this version of happiness that, especially when we look at, when we talk about people, being more content before pre-civilization, right? Because they didn't have the desires, because they didn't even know that the desires were there to be had, right? They were just completely ignorant of it. They lived the lives they lived, and they did it as best as they could, They tried to catch the deer. They tried to run faster than the tiger. Hopefully they succeeded in both, and then they kept going. But if happiness is contentment has never been the way of humans. If we were content, we would have been content with learning that as chimpanzees we can stick a twig in a hole in the ground and come out with ants and just eat ants all day.
Yeah,
right?
If we were content, this wouldn't be happening right now, because
right.
I wouldn't have this computer in front of me. The recording technology wouldn't exist.
Yes, if we produced nothing but content people, we wouldn't have farmed. We wouldn't have mass-produced anything. We wouldn't have created all of this. And I guess, big picture, maybe you can make an argument against that as well. Like, okay, so maybe that's just what we need, is it just to be content with what we needed to survive and not have to grow. But that's not who we are. That's not the reality, right? We can argue all day about good or bad, but we still have to face what is. And what is that we are a species that is based on exploration and adaptation and not being content. So, I mean, maybe happiness as contentment is something that it's like some people think of it as some nirvana state that you achieve, right? If I live the right life and exercise and meditate and have family and things that make me happy, like I can create this permanent happiness that I can live in. But happiness is not a permanent state. Happiness is recognizing when you're in a content state. And contentment isn't always a bad thing or a good thing. There's certain periods where you need to just go, okay, I need to be a little bit appreciative for all the things that I do have, and I can be happy in that. And then I can also look at all the things that I think that I can achieve. And even that, I think that's the happiness that most people are missing out on, right? The happiness of setting goals, the happiness involved in the process of achieving something. And, I can understand, like, not everything is just achieving it and like it's bam overnight, right? Most things that you want to achieve, if you want a degree and so you want to be a doctor, you got to go to school for a hell of a long time, right? And so 3.5 years into 7 years of going to school for being a doctor, you're looking at it like, I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought here, and I feel like I'm going off track.
Well, got pretty existential here in the last half hour.
Well, to completely change the subject, but I guess it is along the lines of he was doing something that he thought was going to make him happy, and how did that end up working out for him? I think we've got to talk about this missionary dude who went to
that is where I wanted to get back to, because that kind of ties into a lot of things that we're talking about with civilization and modern views of it.
All right, now Chris, you know the name of the island. I don't know off the top of my head.
North Sentinel Island. It's island off the southern coast of India.
Mm-hmm. And he was a missionary, correct?
Yeah, I have to read you this story. Like,
all right, yeah.
This pretty much, this story sums up why I'm not fucking religious, because this guy's religion got him killed. He wanted to bring these people Jesus. I swear to fucking God. Let me find the New York Times story, even though they're failing.
There is one piece of interesting aside. Apparently, there was a ship that wrecked on like the beach of this island, and the people that lived there stripped the ship and learned to make arrowheads out of the metal from this ship. Now that plays a role in what happened to him later on, because it's just a case of like, hey, Unfufu, what's that fucking thing on the beach? I don't know. Let's go over there. Ow, I cut myself on it. Well, hey, if we could strip this and turn them into arrowheads, we could fuck up any Christian missionaries that come up on our island real well.
Yeah, North Sentinel Island. It's a forbidden island in the Andaman Sea. It's a long history of repelling outsiders. It's home to one of the last undiluted hunter and gatherer societies. So, like, for real, there's like humans. Pretty much, you go on this island, they kill you.
Yeah, it's like Cannibal Holocaust and Green Inferno all rolled into one.
So any explanation of why this guy thought that he was special? Like what?
Because he was carrying the word of Christ, and God will protect him.
Yeah.
He knew the risk, and that's why he's being hailed as a martyr by certain sects of Christianity. He sacrificed himself to spread the good news.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, this is the type of Christian behavior that I'm all for. As a matter of fact, I think you're joking. If you think that you can just go to Mexico and preach the word of God, like, you should all be going to the most dangerous, literally God-forsaken places on earth to preach your message.
Well, the problem is have some situational awareness, okay? If you
go out there, preach and die, I don't care.
Well, if you show up
cool
and they're like, oh yeah, come on in. And you're sitting there and you're reading to them from the Bible, but you see like there's like four guys gathered around a stew pot that would fit a human, and they're like testing the sharpness of a machete, looking at you, smacking their chops. Probably get the fuck out of there. You know what I'm saying? Or at that point, it's really probably too late. But I mean, have some situational awareness here. And if you're going to go in and be like, well, I don't care what happens to me, God will protect and everything is God's will, then let me ask you a question. Why is anyone in his family who believes that crying? Why are they upset? Why do they want why are they saying we need to go in there and risk more violence to retrieve his body? It's God's will, right?
First of all, he's 26, so throw him in the millennial basket. He probably wanted the fucking experience. He made 2 or 3 trips to the island by canoe from November 15th, making contact with the tribe but returning to his boat. He told the fishermen on November 16th. He paid a bunch of fishermen to get him close to the island, and then he went from there. He said he would not come back from the island, and instructed them to return home and pass on some handwritten notes he had made to a friend. Next morning, they saw his body being dragged across the beach and buried in the sand.
The next morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, personally, as an atheist member of this human gene pool, I salute you. I'm not saying that people with really heartfelt religious beliefs should die.
And
I'm just saying that it's not necessarily making our gene pool less healthy by getting rid of some of the fanatics.
One of the notes that he passed on said, doing this to establish the kingdom of Jesus on the island. Do not blame the natives if I am killed. I mean, he was killed by a bunch of bows and arrows. They fucking killed you, dude. And yeah. This is how crazy this place is. In 2006, 2 fishermen who strayed onto the island were killed and their bodies never recovered. An Indian Coast Guard helicopter sent to retrieve the bodies was repelled by a volley of arrows from the community. Like, this is like shit out of movies.
Yes, absolutely. It's like that movie Green Inferno, where all those idealistic college kids, are like, we're going to go to this tribe and save them from the evil corporations that are trying to impose upon their land. And they get there and they capture them and they start chopping them up and eating them alive because you're an outsider. You're not one of us. You're dinner.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't finish watching that movie, by the way.
So as we were literally,
one leg gets hacked off, I'm like, nah, I'm good on this.
yeah, I mean, because they grab the one guy and they start literally digging his eyes out of his head while he's alive and eating them, and the rest of them are sitting in a cage. At that point, I'm looking over to the guy next to me and going, "You got the balls to kill me?" You know what I'm saying? Because no, find something. Give me your shoelaces. I'm gonna hang myself somehow. I don't know. Fuck this.
That whole situation reminds me of Rambo. You got any weapons? No. You're not changing anything.
I mean,
But are you guys for the society beings? I mean, basically, they're just defending their way of life, right?
Yeah, he was an outsider. They're an isolated civilization. What the fuck did you think would happen?
all right, look, here's the deal. It was a well-established, he wasn't the first person who accidentally stumbled upon this group of people. And it was like, oh shit, I had no idea they were like this.
He willingly went.
Exactly. If you know you're not welcome and the punishment for that in our society is death and you go, you can't be shocked by what the outcome is.
Well, right. I mean, I understand, certainly you should blame the natives because they killed him, right? But this is also the equivalent of I'm going to climb inside of this boa constrictor's mouth, and if he digests me, which I don't believe he'll do, I believe God will prevent me from being digested while I'm inside of him. I'll just be pooped out the other side whole. But if he does digest me and poops out my skeleton, don't blame the boa constrictor. No, you're right. I don't blame the boa constrictor. I blame the idiot who thought Jesus would protect him from being digested.
Well, yeah, and
if no missionaries have ever made it to that island, what the fuck makes you think you're special? And again, he's 26, so, do the millennial math.
Well, he's 26. He's got a head full of mythology that tells him that miracles happen, even though they happen at a very extremely reduced rate once we, invented things like, the way to take pictures and video. All of a sudden, miracles aren't happening 15,000 times a day all of a sudden.
But I know that I can't, certainly not anymore since the guy's dead, but even when he was alive, I couldn't reach into his brain and pull out his thoughts. But I'm guessing that this came from less of a place of religious faith and more from a place of self-aggrandizement. This idea that
I'm going to be the one to get through to these people.
Right. That there was something special about him, that he was worthy of this ultimate challenge, right? This is extreme proselytizing or extreme missionary work. I'm not just going to, if I'm special, I'm going to be somebody. So if I'm going to be a missionary, I'm going to be the most extreme, whacked out, hip. What does Homer say when he's talking about Poochie?
It's a bunch of 90s slang.
Yeah. In your face.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the most in your face missionary.
Yeah. I just think this is another installment of our favorite game on this show. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah. No shedding tears for him over here.
I mean, look, if you're told specifically or you're warned, don't come here, you're not welcome, this is what will happen, and you insist on showing up, whether or not it's right or wrong what happened to you, you can't claim some sort of like, I had no idea, this isn't fair. How much more fair do you need it to be? You were given fair warning. Stay the fuck away. You're not welcome here.
Right. This wasn't like, oh, you shouldn't have wore that dress to the party. It was like somebody called you up and said, you wear that red dress to the party, I'm raping your ass.
And this guy's like, when and where?
And you showed up in the red dress and no underwear.
Yeah, with like 4-inch stiletto heels, bright red hair, bright red lipstick, like anything red you could find. Yeah. Like just he's in full drag in all red talking about, hey, I hope I don't get raped. Yeah. I mean, look, it's just, I don't know. I have family who feel that, you know, the highest calling of their religion is to basically get rid of all their worldly possessions and go spread the word of God. And it's like, okay, well, if that's what you feel is your calling, you go do it. But you have to understand that I don't have to fucking sit there and, you know, thumbs up everything you fucking do. God knows they don't thumbs up everything I do. And that's kind of my issue with these type of people, because I do have firsthand experience dealing with a certain group of Christians who go under the banner of Christian Missionary Alliance. And their whole thing is to spread the word of God. And they really, really think that they are entitled to do that while judging everybody else, but no one better judge them.
Oh, that's
Also,
welcome to religion.
You know, missionaries that claim to do this in the name of God, why do you give a shit what anybody else thinks about what you're doing? Because God sees you, right? But it seems like there's a high importance on being seen doing this work, being seen as somebody who does do this work.
Okay, well, let me tell you a quick story. So one of the pastors of CMA, the Christian Missionary Alliance, I had to deal with. And, you know, like because of the relationship I was in at that time. And as a person...
you know, I'm sorry, I don't want to derail you, but can we just define this group a little bit? This is a church?
Yes, if you ask them what they are, what denomination are, they go Christian.
Okay.
But the point is that they have a college and they train people to essentially go spread the word of God to people who might not have it. Okay, so this pastor was basically killing time in the area he was in until him and his wife could be assigned a missionary position wherever they, you know, ended up eventually going. Well,
they had to do reverse cowgirl all the time until then.
I guess Froggy style was off the plate. Yes, but you know, I hit a rough patch, and this pastor and I got along on a person-to-person level, as long as we really didn't start getting too deep into religion and theology. And, you know, he made at the time, what was presented to me as a selfless offer of a gift to help me, which was I needed to get from one part of the country to another. He was like, I'll buy your bus ticket. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. At no point was it like, and you'll pay me back, and I'm going to compound the interest and put it into the principal and charge you, and you're going to pay points, and I'm going to charge you.
What that mouth do?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it was no prison shit at any point. And then a few months later, not even him, but someone on his behalf contacts me and is like, hey, you know, you owe him this money. And I'm like, why? That was never discussed. First of all, I don't have it. I'm still in the process of trying to get back on my feet. Second of all, why am I talking to you about this? Why is he not calling me? Why is he not writing me with this? And that's when I found out that, like, the attitude, and this was not just limited to him, but this was the people who were part of the CMA church, was, well, you were helped, and apparently, like I was supposed to see the light or something if he helped me, and because I didn't see the light, I now owed him that money back. And I'm like, take me to court. I don't give a fuck. I don't have it. I'm not going. I'm not going to not pay rent and live on the street so I can send him back his measly $125. It's not fucking happening. And then this is what I got. Well, he's a selfless missionary pastor. He doesn't have that type of money. Well, then why the fuck did he give it to me?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, that's when I literally on the phone with this person said, so basically what you're telling me is, even with God, Jesus, and all that bullshit, there's no such thing as a free lunch. You want your pound of flesh. Fuck you. And I hung up the phone. That was the last I ever heard about it. Well, not the last I ever heard about it. I heard about a year later down the road, he was very upset with me. And I was like, well, me and my ass, or he was upset with my ass. And I said, well, me and my ass, he knows where to find me. He can come fucking find me and we can have this discussion. And if that's not good enough, we can get in some other shit. Anything else.
This takes a particular set of balls. I'm not saying that this person has big balls. They have just the right size balls, right? They're big enough to make an issue out of it, but not big enough to confront you personally on it, right? To have some emissary, some third party approach you.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's the opposite of balls. He has a vagina because he made someone else do all the hard work. He made someone else do all his dirty work.
Now, see, if he had small balls, he would go, oh, I was hoping he would pay me back, but I guess not. And then never mention it.
No, but he took the gutless route. Like, it's fine to, when he's out there, needs to look good, loan Rich the money. Oh, that's fine. When it comes time to collect, we'll get someone else to do that. Like, that was the gutless move, man.
The word loan was never used. In fact, at the first two times he made the offer of, I'll pay for the ticket, I refused him because I said, look, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to be in a position to pay you back, because to be brutally honest with you, I don't know if I'll ever see you again. And his words were, don't worry about it. And somehow 3 months later, hey, where's his money? And it's like, first of all, are you trying to shake me down? What are you going to do? I'm not even in the state. Exactly. Please come get it. Please. Because it's been a while since I've been able to beat the shit out of someone legally. Come give me that excuse. And it was like, well, you don't have to go that route. Yes, the fuck I do. This is some gangster shit. This is mafia shit.
You can come try and get it, but your travel is going to cost just as much as you loaned me to get here. So.
And I know your ass ain't going to sit on a bus for 2.5 days to get to the part of the country I'm at. So you're going to end up spending more on the trip down to come get it.
Right. Consider me a sunk cost, and let's move on.
Yeah.
But I mean, see, if this was just like a one-time thing, it was a one-time thing for me because I quickly learned that just like, in jail, if someone tries to hand you something for free, you go, no, I'm good. If you can't afford it yourself, you go without. Because once you owe somebody, it's like, hey, I'm going to need that back with interest. And if you say, I ain't got it, then you're up shit creek. Then that's when the trouble starts. So I only fell for the rope, the okey doke banana in the tailpipe one time. But I saw other people it happened to, and these people, for whatever reason, were like, well, okay, here you go. I guess I just won't eat lunch for a week, and I'll pay you what I have. And I'm like, what the? Wait a minute. These are missionaries who feel the highest calling that in their life can be is to get rid of all worldly possessions, go live amongst people who have nothing, and spread the word of God. So once they show up and they help them get clean water and food and shelter, they go, well, now you owe me, which is kind of what they do. Except for they're not extracting their pound of flesh and money necessarily. It's now you have to believe what I tell you to believe because this book says so. So ultimately, it's all a racket. It's all gangster shit.
No thanks. I'll keep shitting in a bucket.
Exactly. They can't break you if they didn't make you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and
that's what I say to my turds each morning.
But at the same time, first of all, isn't the good supposed to be its own reward? You forget, dipshits, not you guys. I was tempered in this shit for 18 years. The good's supposed to be its own reward. And I totally forgot my second point. So, but
I've read the Bible multiple times, and no point it said give to the poor, but make sure you get a receipt so you can use it as a tax write-off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't claim some sort of I'm doing this is a higher calling, and I'm doing this out of selflessness. But 3 months later, you have your hand out, and they're like, I'm gonna need that back, homie.
Oh, I remembered it. It was it's. You're right on how it's kind of gangster shit, mafia shit. Because if you think about it, these missionaries, what does religion basically do for people? It gives hope to the hopeless. So they find these, they try to find these, destitute, third world, hopeless societies, and give them some hope. And they play on that shit. And to me, that shit is evil. Like that is counteractive to your mission, in my opinion.
Well, also, I mean, what happens when the Christian mafia comes in and starts getting involved in your shit, right? You end up sending 10% of your business back to the church.
It's a nice toilet you got there. Be ashamed if something happened to it.
Right.
That's why, I heard a comedian say one time, he said, I go home and I turn on my ceiling fan and I just sit sometimes and appreciate my ceiling fan because I know one day to get to where I'm at in my career, I owe people. I know one day there's going to be a knock at my door and people are going to be like, you like this ceiling fan? Well, if you want to keep it, you have to do this for me. And if that was, I almost rather deal with the mafia because the mafia tells you straight up, this is what's going to happen if you don't pay us back. This was done under false pretense of this is out of the goodness of my heart 3 months later. And to this day, I have no idea what happened. I don't know if they fell on hard times. I don't know if they finally got their papers to go someplace. And they were like, oh, we need to have more money. Well, I thought you had to get rid of all your worldly possessions to go do what you had to do. What's that $125 going to, what difference is that going to make? You know what I'm saying? If you're selling your home and your car and you're going to live off the land amongst these people and spread the word, what are you going to whip out a Benji and be like, hold it up and all the natives are going to go, ooh. Yeah. No, they're going to be like, give me that. Sniff it, can't eat it, can't fuck it. What good is this thing? And throw it down the fucking ground. I mean,
wipe their ass with it, literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, they'll be like, oh, better than leaves. I just don't understand this the attitude, and I've seen it. Like I said, it only happened to me personally once, but once it happened to me, I became very aware, and I grew some serious rabbit ears for that type of shit and watched it happen to people over and over again. And I'm like, this is somehow you people have moral high ground? No, you fucking don't. You're running the same scam people run on newbies in prison. It's the exact same thing, except for this. Well, you'll burn in hell. Well, if hell is full, if heaven's full of Christians, I'll gladly go to hell. Thank you. Like if it has, these people had no concept of they were dealing with someone who was like, look, I don't want your help because I don't want to owe you anything. And it was, don't worry, you won't owe me. And then when they were like, pay me back, and I'm like, I told you I couldn't pay you back. Their attitude was like, well, then you'll burn in hell. Well, I don't believe in hell, so it doesn't matter to me. Right. Great, wonderful.
Burning in hell sounds cheaper than $125.
Right? Unless Jimi Hendrix's ghost is going to appear to me and say, "Don't make the same mistakes I did." Then, yeah, I'm not going to buy into your ridiculous note. Like, that I'm going to be burned alive and flayed for the rest of eternity in some lair underground.
I mean, look, if you have a serious burning desire to go out and help people who live in areas where they can't have clean water, disease runs rampant, and you're trying to help them out, and there's no quid pro quo, like, okay, now that I've done this for you, you have to sit through my sermons once a week and pray like I tell you to.
Right.
Then, you know what? I do have a little sympathy if you end up someplace that you didn't know that they're going to be like, yeah, come on in. Yeah. Dinner's served, folks.
Well, yeah, because those people are out there. There are a lot of people doing real missionary work of helping people, both in the name of religion and not.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that this is across the board how all missionaries are. I'm just saying that this seemed to be the mindset of this particular group in this particular area that I dealt with. And like when called on it, their attitude was like, how dare you call me on this?
If you are truly altruistic, you should want nothing in return. Nothing,
Also,
not a fucking thing.
Like this guy who claimed to be doing missionary work when he was killed by the people on this island. And what real successful missionary work looks like, sure, it's going to have a Jesus component, right? That is part of the gig, is they want to get another convert. But they're successful in areas where they see a need and fulfill it, right? We went to this village because they had no source of clean water, right? So we brought them water, or we brought them some sort of technology or way for them to get their own water. We helped them out, and then hope that in exchange they're going to be open to listening to us talk about Jesus, and maybe they'll like the idea. I mean, this dude wasn't trying to help them out; he was trying to help himself out. What need do these people have? They're seeing the new world show up on their shores, and they're chucking spears at it. They're telling you, we're fine here.
Yeah.
We're good. We don't have need for anything. We're not trying to flag down the helicopter saying, please drop bacon. We're going, get the fuck out of here. We got all the
shooting
bacon.
Arrows at it. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, the internet remains undefeated in its snarkiness, because the memes that have come out of this are great. Like, one of the ones I love the most is it had the picture of the people from the tribe on the beach, like brandishing their bows and arrows and stuff. And then the other side of it was a picture of the missionary, and it said, when you get sober and go back to your old crack house trying to preach the 12 steps. I was like, damn. I mean, another one was like, there's a guy who's got like 100 arrows in him, and it says, excuse me, have you heard the good word about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? So, I mean, it's like, look, man, I have a hard time getting like, oh man. I mean, look, it sucks he's dead. It really does. And it sucks that somewhere along the line, he had been told that, there's going to be some sort of eternal gift.
Wait a minute.
Eternal.
With this, it doesn't suck that he's dead.
Oh, no,
I'm 100% glad this guy is dead.
One less idiot.
At some point in his life, someone made a decision to beat into his head that if you sacrifice your life for this cause, you will have an eternal reward waiting for you. And to me, it's just that shit starts when you're a kid. If it was a law that you could not talk religion with someone until they were 21, how many people would be religious? Think about it. Because what's the first thing religious people do? They indoctrinate their children when they still believe in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, and all that shit. Mm-hmm. They don't know. They only know the reality you tell them. You're their whole world. And you're filling their head full of nonsense, and you're doing it because, well, that's what was done to me. Okay. That's your rationalization? Well, you were also beaten and molested as a kid. So are you going to beat and molest your kid? Because that's our tradition. We just beat the shit out of kids and fuck them. That's what was done to us.
If I have kids, I cannot wait to not bring them up religious. Oh, man.
I have a friend who, he hit some hard times, and he had to move back home, and he's in his 20s. And his parents were like, you can move back in, but you got to go to church every Sunday. And I'm like, that's the most Christian thing I've ever heard. He has no interest in church. He is, an atheist, agnostic, whatever. He does not believe in any of that. But they think that if they force him to go, that somehow that's going to make him fucking religious magically.
Hey, you can live under my roof again, but you have to wear short pants and this beanie hat constantly.
Hey, to be fair, an hour on Sunday sounds way cheaper than any amount of rent.
He's Catholic.
Yeah.
No, it ain't no hour.
3 hour. Yeah.
Catholic? No, Catholic's an hour. Mass is, dude, sometimes you get a good priest, that shit's 45 minutes. He's got shit to do.
I must have had a long-winded one, because it was like, it took him an hour to come down the aisle swinging the incense. while they're singing that Damien Omen music. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's like a horror movie in here.
But yeah, it's just not about mass either, right? I mean, you got to go downstairs into the weird basement and eat cookies afterwards. And talk about
churches have you guys gone to?
What?
I go to an express church. You go, we left. We went to breakfast afterwards.
An express church. It's Jesus Express.
Hey,
Hallelujah, holy shit.
yo, wrap
Football's
this
on.
shit up.
Get out of
Taking
here.
it to go.
Yeah, we got to get you home before 1 o'clock kickoff. All right, so
Instead of giving communion, he just has like a gun, just shoots wafers out at the crowd like a t-shirt gun.
yeah, I was gonna say like a T-shirt gun, like open up, here comes the body of Christ, motherfuckers.
They just hook a wine bottle up to a hose.
No, I was gonna say they got a super soaker with the other priest right behind you. Here's to wash it down. Don't choke on the blood of Christ, bitch. You know, like.
All right, Lions kick off in 10 minutes. See ya.
Oh God. Well, kind of along the same things, and we haven't talked about it yet. Is the whole shit at the border? Speaking of like people showing up and other people going, hey, guess what? We don't want you here, and they're going, we're trying to show up in a sanctuary city. Why are you firing tear gas at us? And it's like, well, I don't know. Why are you throwing rocks at people? Pretty much, it's a fucked up situation all around, isn't it? I mean, I understand that this group of people might not have been informed about what's going to happen to them when they get there necessarily, but you hear the rhetoric coming from Trump. Did you think there was going to be like a red carpet rolled out? Come on in.
Right, but they didn't make the trip to throw rocks. They made the trip to apply for asylum.
Yeah, and when they were told, most of you don't qualify, they got pissed off. And it's like, okay, well, did you?
But it's the catch-22, right? It's like you. It's not illegal to come. It's illegal to come into the country without permission, right? Of whatever, whether you're a citizen or you've got a green card or you're just visiting. You know, somebody is letting you into the country, and anything other than that is just considered illegal. But yet, how else do you apply for asylum? You have to be on American soil to apply for American asylum.
Well, you know, I do have a few questions before they reach the American border. You know, you constantly hear from certain groups of people about, you know, how wonderful other forms of government it is. Well, why didn't they, if socialism is so goddamn wonderful, why didn't they just stop at Venezuela and stay there? Why did they keep coming north?
What is that?
No, don't give me that. What does it got to do? You know
what,
exactly.
What does it have to do with applying for asylum, though?
Because if they're seeking out a better life, you tell me they couldn't find it in any of the other countries that they passed through. If America's so horrible,
you should have.
If America's so horrible and all these other countries are better, then why didn't you stop there? Why keep coming here? That's my question. If you don't understand the question, you don't understand the question.
I understand the question, but I don't understand your thinking behind it. I mean, you're being facetious, right?
If we're so evil and everywhere else is so great, why are you killing yourself to get here at this point?
I understand, but are we talking about immigration and asylum, or are we talking about idiot liberals?
I don't know. But that's part of the question, I guess. I mean, the question isn't to the people coming here. Because I'm sure if I asked them why didn't you stop at these other countries and kept trekking to America, they would say because America's better.
Right.
Period.
Right. We know why they're coming here.
It's the people on our side of the border who are going, oh, America's horrible, and all these other countries they're great, wonderful. Well, then why don't you fucking take a day off and go fly down there and explain that to them and say there's no need to keep coming to America. Oh, that's right. Because ultimately, you know you're full of shit.
Yeah. Hey,
that's the problem here.
You're still here. You have not left. And yeah, trust me, as the grandchildren of immigrants, I'm pretty conflicted on this issue.
And believe me, I have no problem giving political asylum to people who are being terrorized by so-called police forces, which are nothing more than private security bought and paid for by, drug cartels and tin pot, despots and shit like that. I have no problem with that. The problem is this attitude of, this country's so horrible. Why would any, and especially if you're a person of color, et cetera, et cetera. Well, then explain to me why these people are fucking dying to get here. Explain that to me. I don't understand. And you say that, and you get either a dumbfounded look, or you get, well, you're just racist. You won't understand. Oh, well, that's convenient. Okay, great, wonderful. So I guess we're just not going to have this discussion. All right, cool.
Well, I mean, why would you? What discussion is there to be had there? There's no reasonable thinking person that believes that there's any better society that is south of us.
Well, better looking women in certain cases, but that's a personal preference. Sorry. But you're right. There's no reasonable thinking people that think that. The problem is that reason and subjects like this parted ways a long time ago.
Right. I mean, you want a dialogue, let's talk about the real reason why they are leaving, right? Which is that they have one or two options in whatever their country of origin is. Either everything is run by cartels, or if the government's actually decided to fight back against them and not just be paid off by them, then it is what you're describing, basically a private security force that is gunning down teenagers in the streets for being out after curfew, assuming that they are up to no good, literally gunning them down. So that's what they're running from. I mean,
well, and it's the exact.
But we're
same,
horrible.
It's the exact same question I would ask the people like, "Oh, these aren't refugees; these are George Soros funded actors that are coming here." Really? Have you seen the fucking?
I'm not disagreeing with either one of you guys, but you can't phrase all these arguments as if you're talking to the most entrenched liberal with their head in the sand. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, bottom line is, yes, it's hard to get in this fucking country. Why? Because a lot of people want in. End of story. If no one wanted in, believe me, our borders, people wouldn't be like, protect our borders like they are.
It's not even necessarily easy to achieve asylum in this country.
Absolutely not.
But why should it be difficult to apply for it?
That's a question. Why is it difficult to apply for it?
Chucking tear gas at you makes it pretty fucking difficult.
Well, chucking tear gas at them is like, look, you can't just fucking storm the wall. You can't just climb the fence. We can't let that happen. Mm-hmm. All right. And here's the thing. Oh, they were firing tear gas on women and children. Spare me. My heart pumps purple piss for you. There was also a bunch of men fucking trying to rush the fence. Stop acting like it was just thousands of women and children showing up, emaciated, and we were like, oh, fire on them. Like, come on now. Like, if you believe that level of propaganda, then you're beyond fucking hope. There's no hope for you. All right. There was people that got there and they got pissed off because it was like, no, you're not coming in. It's not just going to be the doors open, walk on in. That's not how it works. People got pissed. People started chucking rocks.
It isn't how it works. But what? The option isn't just either chuck tear gas at them or let them walk over the border and hope we see them again.
Well, there's
a process to apply for asylum. I don't understand why they couldn't be granted it.
Because not everyone of them qualified for the process for asylum, period.
No, the process of qualification is that is where you determine the qualification, right? You can't just say out of hand, you haven't even applied, but I know that you don't qualify because I saw you chuck that rock, or I don't like your look, or whatever. I don't know what you would base it on.
Well, I would think trying to illegally enter a country would probably disqualify you from getting put through the process.
Right, but they're not trying to illegally sneak into the country. They're approaching the border seeking asylum. There's nothing illegal about it.
So
an asylum application must demonstrate two things to satisfy this requirement. The applicant must show that the reason that persecution Try this again. The applicant must show that the reason the persecution that is being done is because of being in one of 5 protected groups: race, religion, nationality, political opinion.
Hold up, though. We're not even talking about what it takes to achieve asylum. We're talking
just
about
asked a question a couple minutes ago.
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about who gets to apply for asylum.
I was just trying to tell you.
Anybody who wants to apply, you're not describing what it takes to apply for asylum. You're talking about what it takes to achieve asylum.
An asylum application must demonstrate 2 things to satisfy this requirement.
To be approved.
So obviously they didn't fall in. Some of these people didn't fall in.
How do you know unless they apply? You can't say that they fall into one category or another unless they apply and you then find out. Otherwise, what are you basing the information on? The way they look, where they come from?
Again, nothing in what I read said anything about approval. It said what you need to be eligible for the application.
No.
An asylum application must demonstrate 2 things to satisfy this requirement. The applicant must show that the reason that the persecution...
Wait, you keep starting at this requirement. I think you need to back up and define what this requirement is.
I keep trying and you keep cutting me off.
No, it's before that. This requirement is referring to something that came prior.
An asylum application must set this requirement, the applicant must show that the reason the persecution that is being done is because of... being in one of the 5 protected groups: race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a social group.
And what happens if it doesn't?
Then it can't apply.
No, the application is turned down. You don't know that information until they apply.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What do we do with them while we're checking all these people's qualifications?
Who can apply for asylum? A person that can qualify for asylum if he or she has a reasonable fear of future persecution on account of race, religion, national or political opinion, or membership in a social group. Mm-hmm. That is who can qualify for asylum.
What about those qualifications? How do you look at those qualifications, then look at this group of people and go, some of you don't qualify? Unless you allow them to apply for asylum, then you can look at their application and go, this one doesn't apply. I don't believe that this person meets any of the qualifications. That's what I mean. We're not talking about the process of asylum. We're talking about who gets to even apply. And I don't know why we've got a huge portion of this country that's just decided that nobody, or even a portion of this group of the caravan, is disqualified until that individual has applied for asylum. And we can make that decision. And to address your question, what do we do with these people? We do with them whatever the fuck we do with anybody else who applies for asylum. I don't fucking know. But it's a process that happens. We have a process in place.
Yes, and every process we have in place apparently is horrible and inhumane and violates human rights. So if that's the case, then we don't need to be arguing about whether they should be able to apply. If they show up and they go, I'd like to apply for asylum, okay, here's the process. And yeah, we're not just going to just open the door, let you walk and go, okay, we hope you show up in 2 weeks for this meeting we're going to have. You know, enjoy San Diego for the next 2 weeks. No, it's not. It can't work that way. So what do we do if we put them in some sort of processing / holding center? That's inhumane. You can't put them in jail. They've done nothing wrong. Look. You're
conflating 2 things here. Okay, we have a process of asylum. We have all the structure that it needs around it. The rounding up of the families and putting them in cages had to do with people coming over into this country illegally. That's something separate from somebody who is seeking asylum. So it doesn't mean that everyone that the process of seeking asylum means you have to go live in a cage for a while, or you just roam San Francisco free.
Well, then the news sources that I've read are flat out lying, because all the news sources I've read basically says, oh yes, we hold them just like we hold people who come into this country illegally. We're still separating families while they're waiting the application process to go through. And that's inhumane. Okay, well, if that's inhumane, what do we do then? What do we do? You can't, like I was going to say, they've committed no crime. They didn't come into the country and try to stay illegally. You can't throw them in jail, all right? But you know that there is an implication that is there any place we put them that, this is like, this is an internment camp until we can, people are going to start saying that shit. And it's just going to stoke the fires of this nonsense and make it worse. And that's exactly what's fucking happening. Everything is fucking high drama instead of just being, guess what? Welcome to America. Now you get to deal with bureaucratic bullshit. That's part of being an American. Deal with it. What else is there to say? It sucks.
I don't know.
But it's better than being killed by a cartel, isn't it? I mean, it sucks to have to go to Department of Human Services and sit online for 6 hours and talk to 15 different people and told you didn't dot this I or lowercase j, so now you have to go and start it back over again. But in the end, if you get the help you need, it's better than not having the help at all, isn't it? I mean, that's my problem. It's criticism without any solution. And you're just criticizing to criticize. And then you have the other side whose solution is just kill them. Put the military at the border.
Well, okay,
that's
but
insane.
Rich, again,
also.
You're phrasing this argument between the dumbest people you can find on the internet.
And these are the people that are driving the fucking conversation. These are the people that squeak the loudest so they get the grease. This is who politicians play to because that's their base. How dumb do you have to be to fucking go, this is my side and I agree with them always? Real dumb. And there's a lot of people that are like that. Did we not see this in the last 2 elections? That people are just like, no, I won't vote for a Republican. I won't vote for a Democrat. I don't care what they are as an individual, what they stand for as an individual. They have that R or they have that D by their name. And I'm just sitting here going, okay, if what we're doing is not right, how can we fix that? And shouldn't that be a priority? You've committed no crime. There's no reason to treat you like a criminal. We're not going to throw you in jail, but we can't just let you wander free until we figure out if we're going to grant you asylum or not.
But why are you chucking tear gas at them then?
If you're throwing rocks at our fucking soldiers, yeah, period, end of story. Are you fucking kidding me? That's not, you're chucking rocks? I'm pissed off. I'm not getting my way.
It's kind of a chicken or egg argument, right? I mean, would any of this have happened this way if we didn't send troops to the border to greet these people?
If we sent troops to the border to greet these people and the troops did this, if you're applying for asylum, form a line over here, blah, blah, blah. We're going to move this along in as orderly a proficient manner as possible, et cetera, et cetera. They had the proper interpreters, so these people who didn't understand English could understand what was being told to them. And it went just like it does everything else in this country. Get in line, hurry up, and wait. If that happened, there's absolutely no reason for any violence to happen. It's when people get pissed that they're not given what they want immediately and start chucking rocks. That shit starts fucking getting out of hand.
Man, I'm not following you there at all.
Well, then you don't follow me then.
No, I don't.
I'm not gonna. So if you don't get your way, it's okay to throw a temper tantrum and start chucking rocks at people. Where else in society is that acceptable around here? If I go to court and I go to fight a traffic ticket and the judge rules against me, I can chuck rocks at him when he walks out to get in his car.
Sure. No, I mean, this is total comparable situation. And try and put yourself in these people's shoes just for a second. You're leaving what you believe to be a life-threatening situation, going on a life-threatening journey to somewhere where you hope that there's asylum and a future for you there, but you don't know for sure. But that gamble is at least better than the sure thing of watching your family and friends die in front of you day after day, or living in a totalitarian government. So at the end of that journey, what do you find but a mass of troops there? I mean, what else are those troops there for? It's to make sure that everyone gets in line.
That's what they should have been there for.
Right.
It was a misuse of our military.
If you approach that border and saw that, what would you think? That these people are to make sure that this runs efficiently as possible?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I wouldn't think.
These people are there to make sure that I'm not getting in no matter what.
I'm going to tell you what I wouldn't think.
So now what choices are you... Hold on, though. Try and put yourself in this person.
Uh-huh. And I'm in this person's shoes.
Option? What is your option then? Go back home to the crime-ridden or totalitarian government that was killing your friends and family in the first place?
No, I'm going to throw rocks at armed people.
Yeah,
because that's going to work out well.
It's a dumb decision, yes. I agree with you on that.
It's
but
just
do you understand where it comes from and what options they feel that they're left with? Can you understand the frustration that might be born of?
Yes.
Just because you're frustrated doesn't give you license to be an idiot.
It doesn't.
Because you are so goddamn intent that I empathize with these people.
But
you're missing. No, stop. I let you go. My turn. That's how this works. Okay.
Chill,
all right?
man.
All right. Now, you're missing my point. My point is this was mishandled from the top down from fucking Jump Street.
No, that wasn't your point. Your point was okay to throw tear gas at them.
If you're going to
they were mad because they couldn't have their asylum right away when they wanted it. That was the point that you were making.
Sure. You know what?
If you wanted to talk about it as a
pulling teeth in the middle of a conversation, dude.
We wouldn't be arguing about this.
Well, okay, so what are we fucking supposed to do, Aaron? You give a solution instead of criticizing everybody's opinion for a change. You give a solution. What do you want to happen? And I don't know isn't an answer. Go.
Don't send troops to the border. Allow them to apply for asylum like anybody else and not make a big politicized issue about it. That's what I would like to happen.
Where do we house them while their applications are being processed?
Wherever we housed whoever came before them. The process doesn't need to change. Okay? The asylum process wasn't broken in this country. We just decided to politicize it.
Remember when we were talking about, oh my God, they're separating families and shit. And
yes.
The first thing, what
am I going to say to the crazy liberals?
What's the first thing I said? What's the first thing I said when that came up? I said, wait a minute, hold on. Was this happening under other presidencies besides Trump? And the answer was yes. Well, then why are we sitting here making a big deal about it now? Oh, that's right. Because this group doesn't like the president that's in charge. So now it's an issue. But when their guy did it, it wasn't an issue. It's bullshit. I agree with you on that. All right. Yeah, I may have started at the wrong point trying to work my way back to make the point that it's been fucked up from the top down because I started at the bottom and tried to work my way to the top. I'm sorry for that. I genuinely am. I made that mistake. My bad. Okay. But this was completely mishandled. All right. You send troops to a border. It's sending a message. But if you send troops to a border and you explain to them it's a peacekeeping situation instead of, well, they may or may not be given permission to fire on civilians or to fire on people.
We send troops a lot of places in the name of peacekeeping operations, but how often do you think that they are seen by the people who live in those places as keepers of the peace?
Probably about as much as the police are seen as a non-occupation force in places like Detroit and Baltimore and St. Louis, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Where does that come from? That comes from the top. That comes from the people giving the fucking orders. That comes from the mouthpiece, the commander-in-chief of the military, Donald Trump, most high, okay? And he exasperated the situation by doing what he did and saying the bullshit he did. Matt has come out and was like, wait a minute, no one's been given permission to fire on these people. Let's just get this straight right there. I don't care what Trump says. That was glossed over in the media. Well, it was an aside mentioned because it doesn't stoke the fires of outrage.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how these troops themselves feel about. They have to know that they're there because their own president painted himself into a corner with his rhetoric.
Exactly.
He made such a big deal about this massive migrants that if he didn't make some show of force, that he would be laughed at by his base. And that's why they were at the border.
And that goes back to completely mishandled from the top down. You can't set the situation up as they're there as, for lack of a better term, warriors to defend the border, like they're repelling an invading force or something.
Right.
This is not an invading force. This is people who are so desperate, they will cross a continent for a chance at a better fucking life.
And this is why I'm so defensive of this particular group of migrants, because this isn't just any old case of asylum. Our president has made sure that it isn't, and the press has followed up with that. So, if this particular group of migrants was never mentioned by the president, it wouldn't be mentioned by the press. It wouldn't be nobody else would give a fuck about it, and it would happen just like every group of migrants before. Some of them make it, some of them get to apply, some of them actually get asylum. A lot of them are turned away.
I mean,
some of them spend a few weeks in a holding cell or a cage somewhere, and then get turned down and have to be kicked back out of the country. And that's just part of the process. That's what I'm saying. Like, none of this is broken.
Well, I think it could be improved a whole lot, but no one wants to talk about improving the process. They want to make it even harder, or they want the process to not exist. And those are the extremes, but those are the extremes that are yelling the loudest. Those are the voices that are heard the loudest over the rest of the dull roar of society that's going, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way to do this.
Yeah,
there has to be. This
is like Trump saying, like, the Democrats want open borders, and they don't say that, and I don't even see any of the more extreme wackos on the left actually saying that we should have open borders.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And in fact, I think I've said this before, maybe it was off the air, but that's more of an extreme, like, anarchist libertarian point of view than a Democrat point of view.
That's somebody who has very little belief in borders, period. Like, we're all one world nation.
Exactly. And I mean, and if you remember, one of the very first episodes I was on, we were talking about it, and I mean, I didn't go so far as to say, let's just keep the borders open, but I still feel we should streamline the process to citizenship. I mean, yes, you should be vetted, and unfortunately, if you come from certain places where there's an extreme hatred for Western culture or American culture or whatever you want to call it, all right, we're going to take a little bit of a deeper look at you than if you're coming from Switzerland. Okay, it's just because it's not like there's a ton of terrorist cells waiting to do some shit to people who disagree with them in Switzerland. All right.
Right.
But I mean, and believe me, and it's not about color. It's more about ideology. I mean, I wouldn't want, like, at the height of the troubles in Northern Ireland, I wouldn't want to just have an open door policy to anyone from Belfast to come here, because that's just inviting a bunch of fucking trouble, ultimately. I mean, you have people who are dissidents, who feel that they have to fight something and are willing to give their lives for it, and they don't care who they kill in the process of doing that. We don't want those people here, regardless of their ideology. I don't care if they're Christian, I don't care if they're Muslim, I don't care if they're Catholic, I don't care if they're atheist. If that's your mindset, you shouldn't be here. Period. Because we have enough people like that here on our own. And instead of doing something about them, what do? We lock up nonviolent drug offenders. No, we should probably throw people in prison who are plotting to kill other people to further a point, an ideological point that they have. I mean, look, streamline the process of citizenship, absolutely. But it seems like the process itself is flawed, and why the national conversation isn't how we can improve it.
Well, Trump does talk. He talks about wanting to have a merit-based system, right? That instead of the more family-dominant system that we have, where if we get, one person gets in here and then they apply to have their wife, their kids, whoever else come join them, that family is more likely to be fast-tracked. And Trump wants just, I don't know what kind of merits and how you actually, like, what do we give everyone, an SAT or something, or how you even standardize that to even assess all these people who are coming from vastly different countries and ways of life and ways of thinking and all this, how we figure out who is going to be the most successful in America. And the reason I'm so against that as a concept is because really what you're getting then is people who have been able to be successful in their own countries, right? How else do you show merit? You have a successful business, or you're, at least could make enough to take care of your family, and you're just looking at America as an opportunity, but an opportunity in the way that, like a hot tip on a stock is. Like, here's this opportunity. There's a lot of growth over here. There's a lot of money to be made in this country. I'm already fairly successful in my own country, but I can be much more successful in America. That type of person, I don't feel is the type of person that fully integrates into American society. They can dip out whenever. Our economy takes a dip, and they're like, that's fine. I've still got 40 cell phone stores in India, so I don't really need you. Now, if you take out the merit side of it and just look at, okay, you know, this person reasonably healthy, doesn't have a police record, seems to be a decent citizen in their own country, and you give that person the opportunity to come to America. Now, this is a different type of opportunity. This isn't the hot tip on the stock. This is, hey, here's a decision you can make that could change the rest of your life and the path that you're on. That person is much more likely to be fully integrated into American society. And, you know, to the point even where they can't even go back. I was driving a gentleman from India to the airport the other day. He was talking about how long he's been in this country and his family is over here and everything. And he was talking to me about the reasons why he came to this country. And he said that everything in India is so set. Like, you are like tested and slotted at an early age, even outside of it, like what caste you're in. Like, he described it a lot like how you hear, Asian countries are, where like early testing, and by 8th grade, you're going to know if you're going to be a fucking botanist or a janitor. And he was describing how people who went to school and even got their higher education back in India were like fully integrated into that way of thinking and that life. And they could be somewhat successful in America, but still come back and be successful in India. Whereas people like himself who feel like he's fully integrated into this country, there's really no going back. He's really not even seen in his own country as somebody who is at the same skill level. He's
been westernized.
Right. He's been absolutely westernized.
I was going to say institutionalized, but westernized is a better way to put it. Yes.
Yeah. So that's all I'm saying. It's kind of a long road to go around to say that, like, this idea of merit-based immigration sounds good. It looks good on paper. It seems to make sense. But I think when you actually pull it apart, like, that is just opportunistic businessmen that we are giving access to this country, and not the true immigrants that are going to be not only future American citizens, but raise whole families of contributing American citizens in this country. That's what we really need.
And I mean, I guess on some cold, hard, unfeeling level, it makes sense for it to be based, immigration to be based on merit and merit alone. But I think there is something to be said for a person trying to bring their family over here. Because growing up in the area we've grown up in, we've all seen it, whether we've realized it or not, where, a family will come here, the older people in the family will buy a business, and the whole family works the business. And by the time, the kids and the grandkids, come around, they work and they go to school and they go to college and they get an education, they move on and blah, blah, blah. To me, that's an incentive, because you have your family there and you're like, look, if we all do this together, mm-hmm. we can improve our lives all around. I mean, you're going to work harder for yourself than you are for somebody else, in theory, I guess.
That's all part of the plan. It's like, you're going to get that small business. It's not the idea that, like, well, I'm going to be the most successful 7-Eleven franchisee ever, and I'm going to end up being, I'm going to make enough money so that we can live comfortably, and I can pay for my kids to be educated so they can do whatever the fuck they want. And exactly. They're going to go on. Their kids are not going to inherit the 7-Eleven. They're going to be a fucking doctor, and they're going to buy their parents a house when they're ready to retire.
Well, ultimately, you'd hope that your kids, who you did own the party store, you did, you and your family did work, you didn't hire outsiders until maybe you expanded to the point where you needed to hire someone who wasn't family. Then eventually the kids will go to college, and when they get older, they'll take care of the parents because, well, isn't that pretty much how it works right now for even people born in America? You hope your kids will be there and not just stuff you in some state home. The minute you become a burden to them, I got to make sure you get your insulin twice a day. I can't do this shit. Here, go sit in a state home somewhere till you die. That's like a lot of people's worst fear of growing old is being abandoned by their family. So I would, once again, I understand on an intellectual level, well, we might not let in the family, but we'll let in certain members. But
yeah,
you're taking away a lot of motivation for people to come here in the first place.
Yeah, and I think their thinking towards the family is completely contrary to what I see happen in real life. Now, you bring families over, you're going to bring the culture over too, right? And you can't just pry that shit out of them. They're still going to want their weird smelling fishy food or something,
Okay.
Or there's certain ways that they're not going to. But I think that when people think about family-based immigration, that's what they think of is like, well, if we bring all of their family over, then we're just like bringing their country with them, and they're never going to fully integrate. They're just going to talk their own language to each other. They're not going to be part of our society. But that doesn't happen. To a degree, it happens.
Been to Dearborn lately?
Well, yeah. No, absolutely.
But I mean, let's be honest, the further away you get from the first generation that came here, that actually lived in the country they come from, the further away you get from that generation, the more Americanized families tend to get. Yes, you still might go to grandma and grandpa's and they only speak, Lebanese or whatever in their house, but you went to Edsel Ford, you know what I'm saying? Besides an occasional Willa, bruh. You pretty much are Americanized,
Dearborn's a perfect example, Chris, and I take your point wholly that there are, probably tens of thousands of women that live in Dearborn that don't speak English, that never take off the beekeeper suit out in public, that they, for all they care, I mean, outside of the fact that they can drive a minivan into a curb every once in a while, their life is not all that different if they lived in whatever their home country was. But their kids are going to be very different.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got some Indian friends, like their parents, straight up, it's like they never left India. They're just living in a new spot. Meanwhile, they are the most American Indian people you'll ever meet.
Right. And that's what we want.
They eat Whoppers and smoke weed.
Well, I won't even go so far as to say, is that what's what we want?
That's what we need.
But if you do have someone who's like, I came here, but I still want to hold, the traditions of where I came from near and dear to my family in my house.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't care. I honestly don't care. Maybe I'm wrong for thinking this way. I don't know. I've been told I'm wrong to think this way by my more conservative friends. When I walk into a party store or a gas station and the guy behind the counter is speaking like broken English, obviously this is English is his second, maybe even like third, fourth, fifth language. Mm-hmm. As long as he can communicate well enough to do his job, I'm not like, dirty fucking foreigner. What's he doing here?
Exactly. He's at least made the effort.
He's speaking English better than you speak Farsi.
Exactly. If I had to speak his language in his land, I would be miming shit. I'd be doing I'd be like two syllables, and he'd be like,
I'm down with those people. It's
right.
It's going to make me sound awful rednecky.
He's part owner of that party store. Like, I go to his country. 2 weeks, I'm begging on the streets, like dancing for people.
Yeah. Yeah, take pictures with the fat American. 20 Kukuran or whatever the fuck your people's is. Well, but that's the other thing. I'm like, look, I don't, and when I see people from other countries come here, and buy something like a party store or a gas station, I don't think, wow, they're taking away from me and natural-born Americans. There's more. If we stop the bullshit, this may be a little utopic, Bill Hicks idea of, we have plenty for everybody, but it's the truth. There's plenty for everybody. Just because this person who came to this country worked their ass off, 15, 16-hour days for fucking years to build that business that they bought to a success doesn't take from you. It's not their success comes at your expense.
Right. They're not taking a slice of your pie. They made their own pie.
Exactly. And
just like you should be making.
Their pie's better though, so I eat their pie. So.
Yeah,
that's why I go.
Or
find some Spanish pies.
Not everyone has to make their own pie. Sometimes you just want to find somebody with a really nice pie that gives you some every once in a while, as most of us do. Most don't make our own
pie.
I think so.
I thought we'd switch talking about pussy.
I'm not sure if I'm hungry or horny right now.
But no, I mean, and I have friends that are like, why don't you see it that way? I said, because that's not the reality of the situation. I've never went to apply for a job, and they've been like, well, the guy who owns the gas station down the street from you, yeah, he took your job from you, sorry. Like, no, that's not how it works. You don't just show up in this country and it's like, oh, take it away from American-born citizens and give it all to this person who just showed up.
Welcome to the country. Here's a list of white people that we're currently thinking about hiring. So just pick any one of these that you want to replace.
There was when
America, Chad, you're fired.
And stop popping your collar on your polos, asshole. But no, it's there was, when I lived in Westland, there was a gentleman who. He bought a party store. I remember the party store before he bought it. He bought it, and no matter what time of day I went in there, that motherfucker was always there. And I got to know him fairly well. We pass and repass and talk and stuff, and obviously, once again, this is one of those situations where English was a second language. So
he called me buddy. I called him dude.
But it was one of those things like, sometimes he would get his words mixed up, or he would say something and it would be, okay, that would be offensive coming from somebody else. Case in point, he was Chaldean, by the way. And he was talking about some guy had come in, they started arguing over the price of something, and he was like, you filthy fucking rag-headed terrorist, Muslim piece of shit. And he's like, basically he's like, I got cussed out, and he kept calling me a Muslim, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're Chaldean, you're Catholic, and he goes, exactly, I'm not even Muslim, and I'm like, how stupid could this guy have been? And he goes, see, you're one of the good ones, and I was like, oh, buddy,
now you just hit it.
like I get your point. I felt like it was Mr. 3000 when Bernie Mac's trying to teach the Asian guy to cuss, and he's like, kiss my ass. He's like, good. Now put it a little bit more. Kiss my black ass. No. A little too far. like we kind of frowned on, you're one of the good ones. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand the sentiment, but
yes, I am one of the good ones, but that's not okay.
You got to rephrase it, buddy. You got to rephrase it, Like, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I've told that story to friends of mine, and they're like, oh, I'd have been pissed. Fuck that motherfucker. And I'm like, dude, he didn't. Context, dude. He didn't mean it in... Like you mean it when you meet a black guy and you go, oh, you speak so white. You're one of the good ones. You know what that's a backhanded fucking compliment or insult, depending on how you want to look at it. Yeah. That's an asshole fucking thing to say. He didn't understand that. He was just like, and if you look at me, I had a big bushy beard. I had long hair. I looked like a walking hate crime. I could understand why he would be like, oh, you look like the rest of the fools that come in and buy the 30-pack of Busch. But you're one of the good ones. And I'm like, okay,
You gotta lean into it. Like, yeah, that's right. Not all white people are evil. Don't believe what you're hearing on the news.
But we all do look alike. It's the truth. But no, you see what I'm saying? And I guess that's why I guess that's why I look at the situation going on at the border, and I'm like, I can't believe the vast majority of them people are showing up with ill intent. I can't believe that.
Well, it's not even that. Now, I think there was a lot of talk about, these violent males that are going to slip into this, or terrorists that are going to find their way into the country. And now that we see footage of what this group of people look like, clearly that's not the case. So now the spin on it is they're dirty and diseased. Like straight up, Fox News is reporting about how
Fox News been to LA lately.
Yeah, these people have HIV and bird flu and monkeypox and whatever the fuck else.
Okay, have you been to 7 Mile and Shiawassee? Plenty of disease on the stroll over there.
There's a typhus outbreak in Los Angeles right now because of all the homeless. We're really going to play that card, Fox News?
We have diseases we had vaccinated almost out of existence that are now raising their head because Jenny McCarthy says don't get your kids vaccinated. All right, we're like, come on now, really, like, please. Let's be honest. These people aren't people that are going to show up and be like, no, we don't want your westernized medicine. We just want a witch doctor to dance around us and sacrifice a chicken and we'll be fine. No, they're going to be like,
hey. Even if they are, like, doesn't that just mean they need even more help?
You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get you healthy. Hey, let's, but then the argument is, well, why do we have to pay for it? Well, and I just go back to, you have no problem dropping bombs on motherfuckers. You have no problem with your money going towards that. You have no problem with your money going towards drone strikes, people that you'll never meet. They never did anything to you.
Or made any beef about a continually escalating fee for all of that. Your money, BT Dubs.
Man, you guys put way more energy into that than I would. My answer would have been because taxes. Shut up.
Well, when that's the thing though. The type of person I'm talking about that would be like, I don't want to pay for them. They don't care when their taxes go towards stuff that they use or stuff that they don't think about or stuff that they maybe low key like actually get off on, like, yeah, go bomb them Sam Negroes. Yeah.
Or just don't know, right? They're just blissfully ignorant. Imagine the tirades they could go on if they had an itemized list every year of like, here's what percentage of your tax dollar went to blah.
Oh, I would not want to see that list. I would be pissed.
Right.
You never show me. I never want to see that list because I turn into Wesley Snipes, Willie Nelson, roll into one. Find me in a cabin in Idaho.
I paid half a cent for piss Christ. Fuck you.
I paid a hay penny for piss Christ. Somewhere a 90-year-old listening to the podcast chuckled. They're like, hey penny, I ain't seen one of those in forever.
But creepy Uncle Sam.
Well, I mean, see, ultimately, this is the beauty of this podcast. In the end, even though Aaron and I once again butted heads, I think we came out pretty much like we're not standing in lockstep, but we're pretty damn close. It's like, look, and if you're listening to this podcast, and you're one of the people that I'm talking about that are like, fuck these people. Why should any of our money go towards helping them? We have plenty of people here to help. Yeah, we have plenty of people here to help, but we don't do it. Okay, period. So do you really think that they're going to open up or back up the Brinks truck for these people? No. I guarantee you more people that are legal here in this country are told sink or swim on your own fucking on your own period than your average American citizen. I mean, like, I hear horror stories about, I go down to the Department of Human Services to get help, and here come the welfare queens driving in their Escalades with their, $15 million cell phones, diamond encrusted and all this shit. And I'm like, yeah, well, I've been down there too. I've seen a couple people, I'm like, yeah, they're working the system. But for the most part, I see motherfuckers that are desperate and have that same desperate look and that, oh shit, I hope I get some help. Look that I saw in the mirror when I left to go there myself.
Right. Okay. Or also another argument against family-based immigration. Well, they just want to bring everybody over here so they get them all on welfare.
Well, once again, who is more likely to need welfare? An individual who comes here and doesn't have his family to help him build a business that he's trying to start, or someone who comes here with family that can help him try to build a business that he wants to start. I mean, isn't the point of welfare supposed to be? It's not a lifestyle. It's until you get back on your feet. It's supposed to be a hand up, not a hand out. I mean, so wouldn't you want to put people in the best position to get them off of the shit? Now, if the system has loopholes and can be exploited, which it absolutely does, then you know what? We need to take a look at that. But that's a separate issue, all right? It's just like the tax code. That's why fucking the tax code gets changed every year. And that's why Joe Average doesn't do his own taxes if he's a 1099. He takes it to an expert because he doesn't know all the little loopholes and tricks that have been closed, but the new ones that have been opened up this year. That's what an accountant's there for. That's their job. I mean, I ultimately, I don't get the hatred for people trying to come here for a better life. All right. And at risk of maybe, reopening a wound that just scabbed over, I do understand the hostility towards, I came here and I'm not being allowed in. So I'm going to, attack the people that I see as not letting me in. I understand you want to do that, but I also understand why people could commit murder. I just don't condone it. And part of coming to America is understanding you got to get in line and you got to wait, man. And it sucks. And I'll commiserate with you while we're standing in line. What you can't do is throw temper tantrums and expect to go to the front of the line.
Right. Because what you're really just worried about competition. It's like why they didn't want black people to play sports originally. Why didn't they want, if black dudes were like sucking at baseball, nobody would really care that much. Like, let them have a few black people on their team. What difference can it really make? But then all of a sudden they start knocking this shit out of the park and you're like, whoa. You got to have your own league. Once again, you don't see a whole lot of like black professional curlers. You know what I'm saying? Like there's not a lot of Jamaican bobsled teams, even though they did make a movie about it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like, yeah, absolutely. But I'm not afraid of competition. I'm not in competition with these fucking people. That's the thing. Like I am on the lowest rung that you can be probably before you're like homeless. Right. Yeah,
what's my competition? My competition is the motherfucker who's trying to rob me for the 20 in my pocket. You know what I'm saying? Because he's trying to eat and I'm trying to hold on to it because I'm trying to eat.
Yeah. And if you're really looking at him in competition, like you have a leg up, right? Like you're already born in this country. You didn't have to apply for citizenship. Anyway.
Well, it is true that American arrogance is to people outside of America is amazing. Like one comedian said that he's like, I'm so American, I go to other people's countries and I'm like, oh, these fucking foreigners speak English. And it's like, wait, you can't speak English in Turkey or wherever the fuck I'm at? What the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, oh my God, can I get a hamburger? Like, the same shit that we would fucking throw a shit fit about. Well, certain groups of people would throw a shit fit about in this country. If people showed up and were like, oh my God, why aren't you speaking Farsi?
Right.
What the fuck? Why can't I get like a falafel or whatever the fuck at McDonald's? It's like, because you're fucking at McDonald's. You want good Mediterranean food? Go fucking to Dearborn or whatever the fuck. What do you want me to fucking say?
My rule for good ethnic food is find a sign you can't read. You will get good food there.
Right.
When I ate off of the food trucks in Portland, Spanish, done. Going there. Want good Mediterranean food? Go to something written in Arabic.
The best Chinese food I know around here, you walk in, and there's two people that will wait on you. And those are the two that speak the best English. And by best, I mean you can kind of understand them. And the whole back is Chinese people. When I walk in
It's another indicator too. You go there and the staff can barely speak English. Like, oh, this shit's gonna be good.
It's, you know what I'm saying? Like if I go to a Chinese restaurant and there's nothing but Mexicans in the kitchen, I'm turning around walking out. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to go to a soul food restaurant and have Billy Bob back there cooking. You know, no. I want the grandma from Soul Food. You know what I'm saying? Like give me some authentic shit. Like what the fuck? Come on. I walk
to a soul food restaurant and there's one white person there, that I'm out.
As long as he's eating, fine. If he's behind the counter, one
white person that is not a customer. I should clarify that.
So I mean, you know, that's another part of it that I think a lot of this stems from is our own arrogance of like, you know, no, we're American, you're not. We're just by virtue of being born American better than you, and it's like no, I don't care if someone's an immigrant. It doesn't make them inferior to me or me superior to them, or however you want to fucking look at it. And people that think that way, I don't understand that thinking, because usually they are inferior to most everybody, even if they're you know, like you talk to them and you know, I believe God made me in one day, yeah. And to quote Bill Hicks, looked like he rushed it. So yeah, I can see that. You don't believe in evolution, and you looked real de-evolved. Yeah, that makes sense. It's just very frustrating because to me this is such a fucking non-issue that's been turned into such a big issue, and it's not like it started with Trump. It's just Trump has gained more momentum with this issue than previous candidates have. And I'm like, we have bigger fish to fry. Really? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot more pressing concerns right now that we have. And we're worried about this nonsense to the point where he's like, I mean, we ended up with 5,000 troops at the border. He tried to send 15,000.
Wow. I did not know that. That seems excessive.
I mean, think about that. 5,000 troops, but he wanted 10,000 more. That's more people that are on a base. You know what I'm saying? That is a small fucking city. It's like, really? That's what you want to send to the border? We don't have better use for these people, even if it's the National Guard. I'm sorry, haven't we had natural disasters all over the country this year where they could be better put to use than babysitting people at the border? Isn't that what Border Patrol is for? I mean, it would have made more sense to me if he said, I want to beef up Border Patrol. I want to hire more people at Border Patrol. I want to make sure that the process of applying for asylum is a lot more streamlined and it goes smooth, and we can vet the people properly, and et cetera, and treat them humanely until we either allow them in or say, unfortunately, no, you have to leave. But that's not even on the table at this point, because that's too reasonable of a fucking argument to have. It's not sexy. It doesn't piss people off. And so we don't care. We don't want to do it that way.
All right. So is that it? We all bordered out?
Oh, I did see some breaking news that Aaron might be interested in.
Oh.
Did we lose Aaron? Oh, there you go. Literally scrolling through some headlines while we were talking earlier. Apparently they've canceled Daredevil on Netflix. There will be no season 4. And as someone who only watched season 1, is that like, you know, you're like, I'm not shocked. Season 3 sucked.
No, season 3 was better than 2.
All right. Well, I guess he's not as interested as I thought he was. All right. So, thanks for listening.
It's 3 hours. I'm not going to like.
No, I'm
not ready for a new subject. I'm done.
Oh, okay. My bad. Sorry. Thanks for listening, liking, and sharing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, check us out on social media at Unregimented Pod. Email us unregimented@ChristopherMedia.net. Check us out every Saturday, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts, or you just eliminate the middleman and just go to ChristopherMedia.net. But until next week, see ya.
Yeah, it's my line.
Oh, bye. Later. Adios.
guys.
Oh wait, adios. That fits, right?
If you like this show, please tell a friend. Please follow us on Twitter and like and share us on Facebook by searching for Christopher Media. You can subscribe to all ChristopherMedia.net shows for free on ChristopherMedia.net. Please make sure to rate and comment on all your favorite Christopher Media shows. Thank you in advance for supporting Christopher Media by clicking on the PayPal button and by clicking through to all the sponsors who support ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net, and thank you for listening. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.